For the past 4 decades, thousands of black students from Milwaukee attended majority-white suburban schools through what could be called Wisconsin's first foray into school choice. Known as Chapter 220, it was a voluntary program that bussed students across district lines to promote racial integration. At its peak, about 6,000 minority students and 1,000 white students participated. In this installment of our Beats Me series, where we answer listener questions, education reporter Emily Files explores the history and impact of the school integration program, which is coming to an end.
Brookfield Central High School is mostly white. Less than 4% of students here are black. That puts 18-year-old Sincere Tatum in the minority.
It took a while for me to adjust to being pretty much most of the time I'm the only African-American kid in my class.
Sincere is one of the last 682 Milwaukee students crossing district lines through Chapter 220. Lawmakers closed the program to new participants 4 years ago, but students like Sincere, who were already enrolled at the time, are allowed to continue to graduation. State lawmakers created Chapter 220 in 1975, right before a federal judge ruled that the Milwaukee School District was intentionally segregating schools. It expanded in the 1980s after Milwaukee Public Schools sued suburban districts over their resistance to integration. Attorney James Hall represented MPS in that suit.
Each suburb, there had been actions by planning councils, zoning boards, racially restrictive covenants that kept African Americans out.
The lawsuit ended in a settlement that doubled the number of suburban districts participating in Chapter 220. Tamika Vukovic was one of the early 220 students. She went to Shorewood schools.
There was this kind of thought process that if we could get to the schools that were predominantly white, my kid would have a better education.
Research shows students of all races do better in integrated schools. So why did the legislature end Wisconsin's only school integration program 4 years ago? One answer is that other school choice programs like vouchers and open enrollment became the priority. As James Hall describes it,
open enrollment was really the dagger that undercut 220.
Created in 1998, open enrollment lets students transfer between districts. But unlike Chapter 220, it has no integration requirement. And it's less accessible to poor families because it does not provide busing. There were some vocal advocates for Chapter 220 throughout its run, but black leaders in Milwaukee were not unanimous in their support. Howard Fuller was skeptical from the beginning. He's a school choice advocate and director of the Institute for the Transformation of Learning at Marquette University.
I just felt like the programs that were promoting integration were not going to make a significant difference for large numbers of black children.
Fuller points out that Chapter 220 and magnet schools were chosen as integration tools because they were easiest for white people to accept. Attorney James Hall says 220 was a compromise, but he doesn't think its limited scope was a reason to end it altogether.
This was the only program in the state with the purpose of bringing together whites and students of color.
Research shows Milwaukee schools are just as segregated today as they were in the 1960s. UW-Madison professor Walter Stern studies school segregation.
Many places have sort of lost hope in desegregation because the resistance to desegregation was so great, and so you see much more emphasis, essentially living with segregated schools and segregated communities, and trying to promote equity within those settings.
Sincere Tatum, the Chapter 220 student in Brookfield, has spent his entire K-12 career in suburban schools. This is his reaction to the integration program ending.
It's just a sad thing because students tend to educate other students on how they've grown up, like what their culture is, and when most of your class is the exact same as you can become kind of ignorant.
Sincere is graduating this year. Eventually, the rest of the Chapter 220 kids still in school will graduate, and Wisconsin's only inter-district integration program will be a thing of the past. School segregation, on the other hand, will not be. Emily Files, 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR.
Words are so important, and people classified as white. One of the ways that they deliberately, willfully practice white supremacy racism, words. They got to the end of that report. University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee's NPR local branch. And they say, you know, the 220 program, that's a thing of the past, in the rubbish bin. And that report was actually a couple years old, because you know it would have for sure been in the DEI purge package under our current administration of white supremacy racism. Ain't no way in the world, but they got rid of that like long time ago. But they said, hey, the 220 program, that might be in the rubbish bin, but man, segregation. That's it. That's like my phrase. What I say was, racism is alive and well. They said segregation is alive and well. That's going to be with us for, who knows. Words are important, as opposed to, because they said it a few times that there was resistance to integration, said there was resistance to desegregation, whatever those two terms mean, because I don't use them. As opposed to that, I suspect it would be substantially more accurate. We'd have a better grasp of why the 220 program was concluded, why it was needed to begin with, because white people are dedicated to the system of white supremacy racism in the Badger State of Wisconsin and beyond. That would be more accurate. But see, we'd all that pussyfooting, see, and then say we're going to promote equity within those settings. That's like saying we still believe in slavery, which is what the system of white supremacy racism is. We still believe in slavery, but, you know, we're going to do the best that we can on this here plantation to promote equity within those settings. Now, you leave those shackles alone, Leroy. Watch it now. But we're going to do what we can to promote equity here on the plantation, once we get all the cotton chopped, mind you. They say just all that would need to be said. We are dedicated to white supremacy racism. Period. Don't need to add nothing else tacky. And certainly, hey man, we had a lot of resistance to integration. Because what does that mean? Dedicated to white supremacy racism. Man, oh man, Gus T learned so much in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In fact, learned so much, even drifted outside Milwaukee proper. I told you I went kayaking up in Thiensville, which is a racially restricted region. And I mean, like, how many black people does the census map say live in Thiensville? 0. It didn't say like 1. It didn't say 2. 0. I said the wild thing about Thiensville is that literally Thiensville is like right across the street almost from Milwaukee. Like you're about 15 minutes from downtown Milwaukee in Thiensville. Okay. And even closer, Brown Deer, Wisconsin, which is right outside of Milwaukee, is even closer to Thiensville. Brown Deer has a population of like 30% black people because it's right next to Milwaukee, majority black city. Thiensville, 0% black people, and literally you can pull this up on the map. You can see all you do is cross one street over from Brown Deer, Wisconsin into Thiensville. you had better watch out. If you got melanin, like, whoa, if you got melanin, a little bit dark, be careful. Now, in my sojourn throughout Milwaukee, I told you all on the last day there, it was Providence. What else can I say? It happened exactly as it was supposed to, dictated by the Creator. I told you on Tuesday, June 17, I was supposed to see Thomas M. Jacobson give a talk on his book on the history of racism in Milwaukee, Jeffrey Dahmer, and some of what you just heard. Restrictions to make sure no niggers go to school here, no niggers buy houses here, none of that. Get on over there. Ugh. So Mr. Jacobson, he was a so-called civil rights attorney in Milwaukee, a graduate of the University of Wisconsin at Madison. Go Badgers. So he was supposed to give his talk that Tuesday at Wisconsin's Black Historical Society. It got canceled. However, Mr. Jacobson gave a talk the next night that did not get canceled. Where was that talk at? That talk was at the Jewish Community Center in Whitefish Bay. That's the affectionate nickname. Officially, it is the Village of Whitefish Bay. I cracked up laughing because we had talked about this place before even going out there being Wisconsin, and this is another racially restricted region where they don't allow black people. And we talked to some of the black people who grew up in Milwaukee, and they said, ooh, Gus, I ain't spent no time in Whitefish Bay growing up. I got out there, went to the Jewish Community Center in Whitefish Bay. There were no black people at the meeting. I didn't expect there to be. I sat front row, and they brought up all the racism and keeping black people out of housing, and it's in the archives. I was able to record the audio, and we got to the end. There was a young lady. She was seated, I guess, behind me, not next to me, well, close enough. And she came up to me, as did several white people afterwards, because I asked a question. Mr. Jacobson, he was talking about keeping black people out, and I just went to some of the I had literally spent that Wednesday, the 18th, at the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee Library at the American Geographical Society Library, and they hooked me up with so many maps that show racism, white supremacy throughout the state of Wisconsin, the city of Milwaukee, and even the village of Whitefish Bay. They showed, they pulled up one, I'll give you a quick one, the white librarian who looked like she was probably all of about 21, 23 years old, not ignorant about racism. I mentioned James Lowen's Sundown Town, and boy, oh boy, she had read that one and remembered it well, and how much Wisconsin is mentioned in that book, even Whitefish Bay. So we start, the librarian, we're talking about Whitefish Bay. She starts pulling up all of these maps. She shows me an area in Whitefish Bay on the map where about 36 white households got together after the houses had already been built, which is really expensive. She explained all this to me, and she said they got together, we're going to write it up, put covenants down, no Negras in our houses. 36 white households got together and did this. She said this is massively expensive. She said the way that you do it normally, where it's not so pricey, is to put the covenant in before you build the houses. If you wait and do it the other way, build the houses and then say we can't have no niggers here, ooh-wee, that is going to cost you. Well, they paid the price. She said, in fact, it's so expensive, you don't even see this very often, where white people get together as a group and pay after the fact to say no niggers. They did this. She said, do you know how rare this is? You see maybe 2-3 cases of this in the whole state of Wisconsin. But we got one here in Whitefish Bay. She stopped and even made note of it for her personal files, because she said, wow, that is kind of rare. Like, I'm not ignorant about racism, and I look at this sort of thing all the time, and wow, you don't see this, but here we go. Whitefish Bay. She showed me the whole track on the map, all of that. Like I said, it was 3 dozen. And then she went to saving, and boop, boop, boop. You can share. So they say, what did you do in Wisconsin? Bam, you can put it up on the screen and show them, this is what I did in Wisconsin, in addition to doing the Jeffrey Dahmer tour, which ended up talking about the exact same thing. Anyway, back to them their maps. Do you want to hear what one of the covenants said? Sure you do. Sure you do. This is Whitefish Bay. It says, lot located at 6019 North Berkeley Boulevard in the city of Whitefish Bay. Now, technically, this is Village, but whatever. Whitefish Bay in Milwaukee. And they go over who sold the company to who, and it reads, at no time shall any portion of said real estate or any improvements erected thereon be occupied by or sold, conveyed, mortgaged, pledged, rented, or leased in whole or in part to any person of Negro or Ethiopian descent. I did note there is a proviso if there's going to be a servant or a maid, perhaps someone to be sexually sewered, that is okay. You can be a live-in Negro servant for white people, but other than that, get on out of here. And this is specifically at 6019 North Berkeley Boulevard, Whitefish Bay. I don't know if I got to go to that location specifically, but hopefully I'll never have to go back to Milwaukee. But if I do, I have to go and check out that region and see what it looks like today. But they have lots of these. If you ever go University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee, you can go through and pull up racks of these and read the exact covenants and all of that for how they kept the Ethiopians and the Negroes out of Whitefish Bay. So as I brought all this up during the discussion, when the meeting ended, a number of white people came over to talk to me. We're in Whitefish Bay. Nancy, young lady, she came over and she said, oh man, Gus T, let me tell you, one of my friends, he has a house right here in White Folks Bay, affectionately, and buddy, his covenant has got that language in it exactly. And I said, for real? She said, oh yeah, yep. He told me about it. He said he was stunned. He went and looked in and said, my goodness, they got it right there. Things. Said, they told me at the library this is pretty widespread. She said, yeah, it sure is. She said, matter of fact, I'm going to give you his contact information. You tell him Nancy said to give him a jingle to talk about the racist covenants in Whitefish Bay. I'm sure he would be he'd be pleased to chat it up with you and maybe even read what's in the covenant at his property. Once I kind of got back from Milwaukee, I was going to say once I got back to Seattle and got settled, but I mean, woof, you might have to give me another maybe 2 weeks, because I was out there for a long time and it is really rugged, and they're throwing tennis ball bombs in Milwaukee. Like, Jesus Christ. Woo, you have to give me a little while to recuperate. So give me another 2 weeks and I'll have it back together. But even without the full recuperation, I said, man, we have got to see if we can do it up and talk about White Folks Bay, Wisconsin, where they are not ignorant about Negroes or Ethiopians. Our guest for today's broadcast, property owner in Whitefish Bay. Even though he didn't grow up like formative years in this area, he grew up pretty close to this region in a different racially restricted region. Since he's classified as white, he didn't participate in the 220 program, but he did have contact with non-white people who were a part of the so-called 220 program. So it'll be fantastic even to see his experience with that program and then seeing it all be thrown in the rubbish bin well in advance of our current DEI purge. our guest for the evening. So thankful to have him on the broadcast and looking forward to hearing some of the language of his covenant, what he's learned about all this. Joining us live from Whitefish Bay, our guest, Mr. Brent Arnold. Mr. Arnold, are you with us, sir?
Yes. Hello. Good evening.
Thanks so much for sharing a bit of your Tuesday evening. Make sure I get the date in. Tuesday, it's July 1, so close to the big holiday. Hope everybody has their all 10 of their fingers and toes by the time we get to this point next week. Again, Tuesday, July 1, 2025. Much obliged for hanging out with us this evening. You could be getting ready for the big barbecue and fireworks display and all that, but we are here to talk about some of the history of racism in Whitefish Bay. Anything that you would like to share with our listeners about who you are, the work that you do before we get started, Mr. Arnold?
Sure. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Brent Arnold. I did grow up in a near suburb called Bayside. Went to Nicolay High School, which is kind of in the same suburban area right near Whitefish Bay. And then moved away to University of Kansas for 2 years, then came back to Milwaukee and graduated from Milwaukee School of Engineering as an architectural engineer. And so, I mean, I guess to start, a lot of my childhood, I grew up, right now I'm 48 years old, so I was born in 1976. And, growing up, I wasn't aware of any of this really. As you mentioned, there were black kids in our school because of the 220 program. At the time, I didn't even know the 220 program really existed. I just kind of was naive and thought black people were in our schools, but then they would take a separate bus from the white kids. And so I guess, at some point, in my elementary school to middle school, I realized maybe it was different. But I'll say I was, ignorant and naive and not really knowing a lot of these things. And then, it was right around when the George Floyd incident had happened. And then you start seeing all these protests and marches all over the country. I think that was when I really was appalled to see what was going on, and then met a really good friend who's extremely educational, Reggie Jackson, who started educating me on segregation and racism in Milwaukee. I kind of knew that Milwaukee was extremely segregated. I just kind of, in Milwaukee, all the Jewish people live in one area of Milwaukee. All the black people are typically on the north side. The Hispanic people are often on the south side. And like the German people came over and they're kind of west in Germantown. And so I just kind of assumed growing up that people just lived where they lived because they wanted to be, close to the people that they felt comfortable living around. But as I got older, I kind of, learned about these restrictions and then started to really understand how engineered segregation was in Milwaukee and then across the entire United States as well. And so that was pretty eye-opening to me, and then had, like you said, had the opportunity to learn about my personal situation. So I live on a road called Bay Ridge Avenue, and it's in Whitefish Bay. And so the Covenant, apparently there was a subdivision called Bay Ridge Subdivision in Whitefish Bay. And in it, this was a covenant that was, it was recorded on May 29th of 1927. And it said, no lot or building thereon, if any, shall be occupied or conveyed to a colored person. And, Reggie Jackson was the one who kind of made me aware of this. And that was kind of when I was appalled when I learned that, and then realized, that there's a lot of challenges in Milwaukee, and we got a lot of work to do to try to overcome a lot of these challenges. And so there's a lot of, yes, Milwaukee has its history of problems, but there is also a lot of great things going on in Milwaukee to help overcome this. And so that got me involved in an organization called Bay Bridge, which is kind of a grassroots organization in Whitefish Bay. And we're working hard to, overcome some of those challenges that Whitefish Bay had. And so they're looking at it as getting involved with like policing is one of their initiatives. Housing is another one. School equity is another one. Food justice. So just their website is baybridgewisconsin.org. So if anyone's interested, go look at that. But there's a lot of good people that are kind of working to overcome these things and try to make some changes in the community as well. So it's not all doom and gloom. I feel like the future is bright, and we're working with a lot of people of color and trying to make things better here.
Much obliged for the intro, Mr. Arnold. If you can speak up, that would be helpful. I'm not sure if the volume is low on your end or if you're far from your receiver, but that would be helpful just to make sure we can hear all of your responses and such to important topic we're chatting about. I guess twofold. I'm glad that you included so-called segregation system of white supremacy in Milwaukee and the racially restricted regions where black people are not allowed to just live anywhere, work anywhere. They are very much limited, warehoused in specific isolated parts, and generally the most toxic, least desirable areas to live. That is not just a pattern in Milwaukee. That is a widespread pattern in Wisconsin, widespread pattern throughout the U.S., widespread pattern throughout the world. Two, where he mentioned his group, Bay Bridge, or the group that he's a part of, Bay Bridge, working grassroots effort in Whitefish Bay. His covenant for the property at Bay Ridge. I told you I got lots of maps while I was at the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee. Bay Ridge, are they in my maps? Yes. Different sections. So this is a lot located at 6257 Bay Ridge Avenue in the city of Whitefish Bay. So on 1926, September 17, the property was sold by Alfred P. Thelen and Agnes E. Thelen, white man and white woman, to buyer George C. Keto and wife, and the deed contained a simple lot. The racially restrictive covenant reads, not to be sold to any colored people for 25 years. After that, a 3/4 majority vote can allow them to enter. This is one of those that I thought was so wacky when I saw it at the library, because I said, wow, that is like super major. Like, it would be really hard, even right now, to think like you could get 75% of the white people in Whitefish Bay. Like, we're going to sell this house to Leroy. 75% of y'all have to. Woo! I would be nervous. I would not be, oh yeah, it's 2025. Like, man, we got Obama and it's a long time. George Floyd happened and all that. Like, man, it's a new day. I would be thinking, Kyle Rittenhouse? I would not think it's no slam dunk at all. Man. Anyway. Before we I have so many questions about the 220 program, the covenants, all of that. I guess sure. Before we get to any of that, we speak to our guests. Very important definitions. Words are so important. On this broadcast, I use the term racism and the term white supremacy as synonyms. The definition I use, a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you think such a system exists? Do you think that definition is accurate?
I would say yes, that definition is accurate. I don't think you can look at it holistically. I mean, there are good people and there are bad people of all races and all creeds, and so I think, it's hard to generalize. I don't typically like to generalize things, but yeah, I mean, there are people definitely racist, and there is lots of history of segregation, and governments now that are trying to go back in time and make it harder for people. So yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said.
Important double negative there for our listeners. And just for my own clarification, you did say that you are a white man. I believe you said you're a 48-year-old white man, Mr. Arnold?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Exactly, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I do, just for our listeners, it's significant to me. I hear people frequently, they will say, let's be careful about generalizing, but specifically this conversation about racism, when I hear that, I find it curious because, well, we could take something that we've already discussed. Generally speaking, black people do not live anywhere in Wisconsin other than Milwaukee County, southeast area. Beyond the southeast region of Wisconsin, generally speaking, there are very few black people. Now, is that true, based on evidence, Mr. Arnold?
I don't know all the populations, I'll be honest, but I mean, generally speaking, I would say a lot of the majority of black people do live in the city of Milwaukee. I think Racine and Kenosha probably has a decent amount, and then Madison is probably a lot less, and Green Bay is probably even a whole lot less, and those are the big cities in Wisconsin.
Green Bay is a whole lot less. Like any black people, if they got memories of the good old times watching Brett Favre out in the snow and stuff, they came in on a plane or a bus. They didn't live in that zip code and go watch no Brett. Sure. Please, not in Sheboygan, not in Fond du Lac, as he said, not in Madison. That's what else did you do while you were in Milwaukee? Whew, I saw that information in so many different ways. Ain't no niggers in Wisconsin except Milwaukee County, Racine. That's it. Once you leave that southeast corner of Wisconsin, with same thing I said before, watch out if you are classified as black. Like, Cedarburg? Like, are you serious? Have you been to Cedarburg, Mr. Arnold?
I have been there. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, let me just kind of step back for a second. Lately, you go to like sporting events, or Summerfest is a big festival going on in Milwaukee right now, and I'll kind of, just kind of survey either the crowd at a Bucks game or the Packer game or a Brewers game, and I'm trying to like understand how diverse the crowds are at all these events, and are they a representation of the community? And typically it's mostly white, predominantly white. And so ironically, I was just at in the city of Milwaukee, there's a swimming pool at Lincoln Park. And so it was me, I took my wife and my son, we went to this swimming pool, and we were, there was probably 300 people there, and we were, there was the three of us were the only, and one other person were the only white people in the entire place, and the entire pool was of all black people. And that was in the city of Milwaukee. It's basically right on the other side of the freeway from Whitefish Bay. And then, ironically, this last weekend I went to Cedarburg, and I kind of made a joke to my son, my 18-year-old son, and I said, how many black people do you think you're going to see at this pool? And, I guess his answer was, well, a lot less than we saw last weekend. And I was kind of pleasantly surprised that there were there was more diversity than I expected. I expected there wouldn't be any black or brown people there, and I'd say there was probably 5 to 10, but better than I expected. So I don't know. We've got a ways to go, but I made the comment to my son: if we could get 25% of the people that were at Lincoln Park to come to the pool in Cedarburg, and get 25% of the white people that were in Cedarburg to go to Lincoln Park, we might be able to accomplish something. But we're not there yet.
Wow, that is so fascinating. That is so fascinating, all of that. I guess most immediately, if, let's say, somehow we came up with some Elon Musk juju and we could make that happen. So we got about 25% of the people from the Lincoln Park pool to come north to Cedarburg. And then, hey, they got a lot of resources. We get a big tour bus. Yep. We get one of them Tesla buses, and we get everybody who is at the pool at Cedarburg. Yep. We bring them all down, air conditioned too. We bring them all down, and they hang out at Lincoln Park for the whole weekend. Make a jamboree. It'll be Summerfest Part 2, kind of connected to all that. So we bring them down. Best case scenario, what would be accomplished?
Well, I think, getting back to maybe the 220 program, I grew up Jewish, but some of my friends that were in that 220 program I met at a young age, and then kind of ended up growing up with them, and then we kind of separated for a little bit in high school, and then got back together within businesses, and we're both in construction. But I think it's when you know somebody and are friends with somebody that you can relate to that person. I think that goes for, people that are LGBT or, any other differences, immigrants. So if you know somebody and you are friends with somebody and you trust that person and you have good conversations with each other, it kind of breaks down some of those barriers. And I think our society struggles with people not wanting or afraid to meet somebody or talk to somebody of an opposite race, and that's a problem, I think, in time, and something that, God, I hope, we can help overcome. If you go back to the Jewish people with black people, look at in the Martin Luther King March on D.C., there was a lot of rabbis that were marching side by side with him, and there was some strong, relations in both those communities. I think, with the assassination or murder of Martin Luther King, a lot of that, I think, went to the wayside, and, our country has regressed. But, as Obama had said, you take 2 steps forward, you take a step back, and there's this pendulum of politics going on, and hopefully, I used to hope that the night that Barack Obama was elected, I remember being at a friend's house watching, his speech that night, and my son, who's now 18, but he was like, I don't know, tiny, in a little carrying case. I remember picking him up grabbing him. He was sleeping in his little, car seat carrier, and I remember picking him up and taking him, into the car to drive him home, and thinking to myself and kind of talking to him as well, saying that he's going to live in a better society than I grew up in, and then my parents grew up in, and that, racism will come to an end, and hopefully segregation will also kind of come to an end. And, I hate to say it, that was a dream that it still hasn't happened, and we're far from it now. And I'm not sure that we are. I think we might even be in a worse place than we were when he was born. And, so.
That's what a lot of the data says. Things are not improving. I wanted to rewind a little bit, if you will allow, because it was your previous response that sparked so many thoughts in my head. So when you said it wasn't just you and your son. You said you took the whole family because you all were amongst almost the only white people at the pool at Lincoln Park before you all got to Cedarburg the following weekend. So when you all went to that park, which you said is right across the freeway, so y'all didn't have to travel that far from Whitefish Bay, were you all like threatened, stalked? Did you all go out and see, "Whitey, go home" written on your car?
Not at all.
Anything like that?
Not at all. Nope. Nope. I've never experienced that, except for one time, and we can talk about that later. But no, I felt comfortable there. It was a very crowded pool, so I was feeling claustrophobic. Like there was a ton of people in this pool, but I didn't feel unsafe. We didn't get any looks, no comments. I mean, I often kind of wonder what goes through black people's heads when they see, three white people in a totally black, event, but then, what goes through white people when they see, one or two black people like you showing up at the JCC? It's the same thing. So, it's interesting, and I think it's something we all can learn from.
I thought you were going to say, what do the white people think when one or two black people show up on the jury and then they get sent home? Like, what are they doing here?
Yeah, no, we could go there too. I mean, that is also there's an organization in Milwaukee called Common Ground, and they realize that the juries in Milwaukee are not a representation of the community, and so they're working to make sure. There's studies proven that if there is at least one black person on a jury, that the jury will, I don't know if being sympathetic, but being a little bit more realistic in what the facts are of the case. And so, we need to have better juries and, more diverse juries.
That might be another one where I would say words are important as opposed to having better juries or more diverse juries. It is important to have non-white people on juries, to be specific, because sometimes they'll take that and say, well, we need to have elderly people, or we need to have people in a wheelchair, or we need to have LGBTQI people. We need to have non-white people on juries, and the reason to have non-white people on juries is to, at least to a small degree, it mitigates the system of white supremacy racism, which generally happens when and particularly, I didn't know this until I went to Milwaukee. That's why traveling is important. I did not know Milwaukee is a majority black city. It took me about 2 or 3 days to realize that. And then I kept looking at the jury for the Sade Robinson murder trial, and I said, wow, it's overwhelmingly white, especially at first because they had the alternates. So it was 15 total with the 3 extras, and you got 12 white people in a city that is majority black. This could end up being 12, because they were going to eliminate 3, and it was only 3 non-white people out of the 15. I said repeatedly, this could end up being an all-white jury in a majority black city. How is that? Oh, that's the system. That's dedication to the system of white supremacy. And that's even one, because I've heard the word ignorance used a lot today. That's one, and I said this while I was in the 414 Cream City. White people have known about this for a very, very long time, because the same thing, can I pick anything? Yup. Same thing with the lead poisoning and the water, which is very much tied to racism. Same thing with the racially restricted regions. White people have known about all of this for a very long time. It's not like when George Floyd happened in 2020. What? It's no black people on the jury? Really? Have you ever? No, seriously. Are you pulling they don't have no, Mr. Arnold, is he lying? They don't have no, really? That's not the case. Like, even, in fact, you could rewind all the way to when you were holding your infant son, Obeezy, coming into the White House. Even then, it would not be, what? They don't have no black people on the jury? Really? Are you serious? You lying. Stop. Like, this has been a problem for about as long as we've had racism, because white people have willfully, deliberately excluded black people from Whitefish Bay and juries, not just in the U.S. or Wisconsin, but around the world. This has happened. That's why some of this I say is important. Now, even getting to one of the other points that came to mind, because you mentioned your son, like in a number of different points, your son at a very young age seems already very informed about racism, white supremacy. He already knew, man, it's probably not going to be a whole lot of dark people at the Cedarburg pool. And he was correct. Like, he didn't have any trepidation about going to Lincoln Park, and there was no reason for him to have any. It was, as you said, safe environment, even though it was very crowded. Man, I am so glad that heat wave was descending on Milwaukee just as I was departing, and I was seeing all those triple-digit heat days and 95-degree heat days. Like, whew. Deuces, you all have fun with all that. Love it. Get back to Seattle, where we've had like highs of 70 degrees. I think it got to 80 degrees, which I'll take over 100 anytime. But anyway, your son, even at 18, he seems very aware that he is classified as white. We are in a system of racism and what he can expect in different environments, even how to be treated. Is that true?
Yeah, and I would say he probably grew up in a strong household that taught him right and wrong, and he actually he went on a trip. It was with our temple, but he went on a civil rights journey trip. He did that 2 years ago, and then Nancy and I actually had the opportunity to go on that same trip about 3 or 4 months ago, where we started in Memphis, Tennessee. Saw the Lorraine Hotel, and obviously the site where Martin Luther King was assassinated, and now it's an amazing U.S. museum, civil rights museum, and then from there traveled through all of Alabama, went to Montgomery, went to Selma, went to Birmingham, and then the trip ended in Atlanta, Georgia, where the gravesite of Martin Luther King is, and that was a really powerful trip for him, and even a more powerful trip, I think, for me. And so, kind of learning some of the stains on our history. There's an amazing museum in Montgomery, Alabama. It's called the Legacy Museum, and if you haven't been, or anyone hasn't been, you got to go. But it's a lawyer, Brian Stevenson, who has been working to get black people off of death row that have been wrongly charged. We can get into policing and all that, but he started this museum called Legacy Museum, and it's the journey from slavery all the way through to mass incarcerations, and quite a learning experience of being in that museum. Being Jewish, I was always taught that the Holocaust was kind of the worst thing that ever happened in humanity, and that 12 million people were killed in the Holocaust, 6 million of them Jewish. But then I go to this museum and I learn, 12 million people also died in slavery, and that was done by the U.S. And nobody wants to talk about that in our U.S. history classes. So it's just kind of amazing, how much the U.S. government has kind of swept the education of slavery and lynching and all that under the rug. And it's really sad, and it's even getting worse now that all these book bans are out there, and we're not even being able to teach our kids the reality of what actually happened in our nation. Some of those atrocities.
Getting worse, he said it. I mentioned that previously. With you all going on all of these different, tours, Alabama, Memphis, you and your son going on these different tours to study all of this. were your son, were you the only white people when you were going to these different spots?
Communities? Well, we were. It was with our temple, so there was. It was a group of, I think, 20 Jewish. On the trip that I was on, it was about 20 Jewish adults, all white. And so we got to meet with the bodyguard of Martin Luther King. We met with people that had marched over the Selma Bridge with Martin Luther King, and they told us about their experience of being clubbed almost to death. We met with a lady who I think in Birmingham. Oh, yeah, in Birmingham, who was one of the children that marched out of school and then to the park in the center of Birmingham, and then were shot with water cannons, and the dogs put on them. I mean, some horrible things. But to learn from the people that experienced it firsthand, and if we don't learn from our history, it's bound to repeat itself.
Fascinating. Wow, what I remember Nancy did tell me about that back at after the lecture was over in Whitefish Bay. Just sometimes to make sure that we don't have any confusion, you did tell us that you were a white man previously, and you brought up being classified as Jewish as well, and that even is important, going back to that talk that evening with Mr. Jacobson, because he kept insisting that so-called Jews, and this beautiful illustration, because he kept insisting that racists kept blacks and Jews out of Whitefish Bay. And I had to retort strongly, twice in fact, because he insisted on saying this. And I said, Mr. Jacobson, I was in the library for hours today. They showed me racks and racks of maps. They showed me racks of covenants. I did not see one, and I mean not one, that mentioned no Negroes, Ethiopians, or Jews. Not once. In fact, I didn't even see any other so-called racial classifications. I didn't see no black and brown people get out of here. I didn't see no black and yellow people get out of here. I didn't see no BIPOC people. I didn't see none of that. All I saw was blacks, Ethiopians. Some might say the same thing. I do. That's all I saw in the covenants. And he refused to acknowledge, oh yeah, I guess they didn't quite do the same to so-called Jews if they're classified as white, because you do have non-white people who are so-called Jews as well. So you told us that you are white. Hang on one second, because I am getting to my question here. Because you said you're classified as white, and then you told us, or you said a few times in there, that you are so-called Jewish, but you do have a house in Whitefish Bay. So that would be evidence right there. Right. I guess it's not that bad in terms of keeping so-called white people who say that they are Jewish out of Whitefish Bay. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I think at one time maybe it may have been, but and it is less. Even the Jewish Community Center is in Whitefish Bay only because they bought an old school there, turned it into the Jewish Community Center. I think at one point there was a lot less. Now it's slowly there are more kids in the schools that are Jewish, but it's a lot less than if you were to go to the next suburb over, and then even the next suburb north as well. So, I think if you look at the lack of diversity and lack of black people in the schooling in Whitefish Bay or in the schooling in Wauwatosa or a lot of these locations, it all stems back to some of these covenants from way back when, where people weren't allowed to live there, didn't want to live there, didn't feel safe living there, whatever the reasons being. And then, over time, I kind of thought the term White Folks Bay was kind of like just a made-up term that people used as a joke because there was never any black people and it was all white. But then when you start learning all the history, there's reasons why people use that term. and it goes back to, some of those early covenants and the lack of, black-owned businesses, through in other cities, it was, the burning of black communities and torching of their businesses, a lot of bad stuff that happened. And, we as a people need to kind of come to the reality. I think that, growing up and not, through that, and obviously my kids, like, they're learning about it, but I think, you just got to come up to the reality that it happened. It was awful. We need to learn from it. I believe that, in incidences, there should be some, what do they call it? What's the term where, that financially that people are forgiven for some of the atrocities that have happened. So, I believe in that. And, some cities are better at coming to grip with what happened and admit, publicly announcing it was awful and learning from it and growing as a community. And then there's others that just want to forget it and pretend it never happened. And I like the first part. I like the earlier way of doing things better.
Well, we'll see if there's widespread support for that. I wanted to ask about your white childhood in Bayside, and I have to say it that way because Bayside, racially restricted region. But before I get to that, as a white man in a system of white supremacy racism, do you think it would be logical, based on evidence, if any non-white person, if they suspected that you could be a racist as long as the system of white supremacy exists?
I repeat the question.
Sure.
People think I would be racist?
The question, you've already told us you are a white man. Do you think it is logical, evidence-based, for anyone who is classified as not white to suspect that you could be a racist under the system of white supremacy?
I would think that would be unfair, and I would call that prejudice, because they're judging me before actually getting to know me. But I can see how it would happen. There's people that are racist and they don't have, there's no good reason why they are, but they are, or maybe they have a reason. I don't know, but I can understand why somebody would hold grudges for the past, but I don't think that's fair, because it wasn't like I or any I had anything to do with it, so I don't know why they would use it to think that I would be racist.
Let me ask a few questions there. I guess number one, sure. This seems like a softball, but I'll ask. You, as a white man who grew up in a racially restricted region and now a property-owning white man in another racially restricted region, you certainly have benefited from the system of white supremacy racism. Is that true?
Yeah, I won't deny that, of course.
Okay.
The communities aren't like currently, restricted. They were at one time.
There still aren't very many black people that live in Whitefish Bay and or Bayside. So come on now. At any rate, now.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you there.
Okay, let me
and we're continue
with my.
That.
Let me. I disagree with you there, because the proof is in the pudding, as they say. Now, you said the question was, is it logical and is it evidence-based? Now, you just admitted that you have benefited from the system of racism, and just looking at the covenant for your property says, got to be white people, no niggers. I'm paraphrasing, but And you grew up in a separate racially restricted region. So that means you went to a school, didn't have lots of niggers. They had the 220 program and all of that. So based on evidence, is it logical to say, hey, Mr. Arnold, he could be racist?
Sure. Yes, it's logical.
Okay.
I don't think it's fair, but I mean, I can understand why people would feel that way.
Your volume drops out at significant points. That was a significant. There we go. Thank you. Robust. Yes, sir. You wrote much better. But I think that's important because I've just seen so many times where white people, like yourself, will say or will claim, I have to put it that way, will claim we're doing so much hard work here in Whitefish Bay and blah, blah, blah. Like, not just I looked at the maps. I was in Whitefish Bay. I looked at the crowd in Whitefish. Matter of fact, we had this exact same discussion in person. So Mr. Jacobson said exactly what you said. We've made so much progress, and you can't do that now. We got so many people working hard, and we don't support all that racism now. And as opposed to saying anything, because I was sitting on the front row, I just turned around and looked at who was in the room. And since it's recorded, you got the same thing you just did. We got all this uncomfortable snickering. And I didn't have to say anything because, I mean, now really, hey, even if it's we don't want no niggers living with us even in 2025, which truth be told, I think that's accurate in terms of what white people want. Even if that's true, I asked Nancy because she sounded like she was trying to scold me and other black people for not being willing to come out to Whitefish Bay. And I said, pause. Nancy, did you cross the freeway and go by Lincoln Park, any other parts of Milwaukee, and say, hey, Leroy, Lakeisha, we're having a speaker over in Whitefish Bay. No. Calm down. It's going to be totally safe. In fact, we're going to have refreshments. It's going to be great. We'll give you a ride over. It's going to be done early, so you won't have to be there late night and feel like, crazy hooded white people are going to be out crazy. Well, we'll get you back safe and sound. It'll be grand, and you might even learn something, and you can get a book on discount. I said, did you ask any black people to come hang over and hear Mr. Jacobson? Nope. I said, it looks like nobody did because there was only 2 black people there and none of you all invited me. I found this on my own. That's what I mean when, like, come on. Now, how have we got all these anti-racist white people who we're against racism? Really? Like I said, the proof is in the pudding. And right now, dedication to white supremacy racism is what the evidence shows in Whitefish Bay and probably Bayside as well. In fact, before you even get here, for why someone would say, I suspect Mr. Brent Arnold, he could be a racist, just let's look at his life. Bayside, growing up in Bayside, were you around any black people at all up until like age 13, before the 220 program? Did you have contact with any black people?
Except for the people that I was in school with. And, obviously when you're under 13, you don't really have much to say about that. There's nothing it wasn't my influence in being able to know that was, not correct or not normal or whatever you want to say about it. It's a white dominated community, no doubt. So is a lot of suburbs in Milwaukee now.
And these, again, as we talked about before, the word that you used, I love, these are engineered by people classified as white to be white-dominated communities with no niggers, no non-white people really, but certainly no niggers. So for the school part of it, before we get to the 220 program, you said you had, was it like a lot of black people? Or are we talking like one, two black people?
It was probably like 2 in a class.
2 in a class. Okay, that's about what I would think.
Yep.
Here, let's see, this much honesty as we can stand, Mr. Arnold. I was there I was there for the Sade Robinson murder trial, so really, a racist joke is, you gotta be joking. They put all those gruesome pictures up on the board and all that, please. So, did you hear any racist jokes growing up in Bayside, Wisconsin? Population less than 5,000, Bayside, Wisconsin.
I wouldn't say jokes. I would say that there was definitely I remember, I remember my grandmother, it was me and my cousin, we were driving in a car, and, we were driving somewhere in the city, and she had stopped, and I think I just remember her saying, like, she's going to let the Negro girl cross the road. And I was kind of taken back by that. And then I remember my cousin saying, Nana, you can't say that. Like, that's not okay. And the thing to me was, like, I don't think she said, I mean, I don't really know, but she said it as if she, like, didn't know it was wrong. Like, she almost said it like that was just the way it was, and that kind of was like, oh, well, that's not the way it is, and times have changed, and everybody needs to change. So I remember kind of at an earlier age. In the Jewish community, there's a slang term for black people. I'm not a fan of it at all, and so I think that is racism. And so when I hear people say that, that really bothers the heck out of me. And I think, for everybody in the Jewish world that complains about anti-Semitism, and they're using, I'm not saying everybody, but certainly some people, then, maybe they need to learn what hatred really is.
Whoa, wait a minute now. I'm a little ignorant. What is the slang term that they use for black people?
It's a Yiddish word. The term is schwarze.
Oh, I have heard that before. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yep, and honestly, Yiddish-wise, I don't even know. To me, it's derogatory. I don't use the term. I don't want anybody around me using the term. But I think in the olden day Jewish community and Yiddish community, they kind of used it as like a way to describe a black person, and it's just not okay with me, and it shouldn't be okay with anybody, to be honest.
Did you hear that term growing up in Bayside to describe? Oh, okay. Common?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say common, but it was used.
Wow. So he said these are not racist jokes, but these are just kind of racist
slang terms.
Yeah. That's what we'll say. Yes. With the section with your grandmother where I guess got a black female pedestrian and she's going to get across the road here. She says, oh, man, I'm going to let the Negro gal cross. Did she call her Negro or did she say Negro gal?
She said Negro, and to me, I don't know the difference. So, in my language, none of them are appropriate. So,
I don't know the difference either. Work. Anyway, it seems like this question might not be related, but it is, because it came up so frequently in my travels, and it even, anyway. Do you remember, as much honest as we can bear, and I think really for Wisconsin, I don't really, I can't imagine this being any point of shame. If you can remember, when did you have your first sip of alcoholic beverage, Mr. Arnold?
I was probably 18, probably towards the end of my high school years with some friends or something, and then I certainly drank more when I got to college.
Okay. That seems, even though that is underage, I guess illegal technically, that seems like really late based on what I heard while I was in Wisconsin, which it kind of stunned me. But then by the time I was there 2 weeks, I got, like I said, it took me about 2 days to be like, whoa. This is a majority black city, Milwaukee. Then after I was there about 2 weeks, it was like, whoa. They consume a lot of alcohol around here. Like, woo! I think they have all those festivals in Milwaukee, real talk, just as an excuse to consume more alcohol. Like, well, I guess we'll leave the bar, go to the festival. Well, you can still drink now. You can still drink.
Yep. And I would say sell alcohol because there's a lot of money behind it, and the tavern unions were very powerful in Milwaukee, and so I think there's more bars per capita I think South Milwaukee has the most bars per capita or something like that. But people like to drink in Wisconsin. They like to drink Wisconsinably.
It is good. Man, and it's young people. That came up so consistently. I heard so many folks saying, oh man, we went to the tavern at 14. Oh, we went to the tavern. Sade Robinson's murder trial, the convicted white killer, one of the tavern owners who testified, because so much of it was about them going to the bars and her drinking underage. The tavern owner, he said, I've known this white killer. He's been coming into our pub and drinking for about 20 years. I was appalled. Like, literally, I was looking around to, like, disrupt people that I was sitting next to. Like, did you hear that? Like, wait a minute. This dude, convicted killer now, is 34. If he's been coming in for 20 years, he got a 20-year tab at the bar. He's been coming there since he's 14? Like, wait a minute. Like, and nobody said anything. Like, I brought it up and people just looked at me like, I've been drinking here since I was 14. Like, what's the big deal? Lots of people drink here since they were 14. And then someone told me in Wisconsin they have some kind of goofy law. Like, I guess if you are 14, 15, 16, if you have, like, your parents' permission or they're with you, you can legally consume some form of alcohol. Do you know this to be true?
Yep, that is true. If you are with your parents, you can. If your parents consent, then you are legally allowed to drink alcohol.
Everybody, when I told you, one, Wisconsin is dangerous. There you go. That's one. And then, two, I've noted very early, it took me a little bit longer than, whoa, this is a majority black city? Whoa, it took me a little bit longer. It's like, it's so dangerous. And the alcohol, they drive in people's houses all the time here. I started averaging. In fact, I wagered. I said it happens about once a week. It's going to happen again before I leave. And it did. I said that right there is all of the power of the tavern union and 14-year-olds being allowed to drink and all the rest of it. Hey, if you're okay with somebody driving over your rose bush, knocking down your mailbox, driving into your living room maybe every other week, right on. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Wait a minute, we got folks who dialed in with questions. I didn't get even done with Bayside. Victim, if you have a question for our Whitefish Bay property owner, they really should just change it. White Folks Bay, make it proper and official. If you had a question for Mr. Brent Arnold, you should be with us, Mr. Victim. Proceed.
May I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much for taking my call, Gus, and greetings to Mr. Arnold. Thank you for coming to speak with us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I'm not quite sure if I heard you correctly or heard Gus say correctly. You said you own, you're a property owner, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I own a house in Whitefish Bay.
Okay. Are you located in the area that's predominantly like white?
Yes. So it's interesting. I'm actually one block away from Glendale, which is the next suburb to the west of us, and the majority of people in this community are white. But then there's an apartment complex just on the other side of the next street over, and there, I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure that there is a lot more diversity there, and because I see people walking their dogs in our community, and I certainly welcome them.
Okay, all right, that's cool. I want to, and you're also a part of an organization that's looking to, I guess, um, change that. I'm not too
Yep,
sure.
make changes, make
Okay.
improvements. Yep.
Okay.
It's called
I've heard of
Baybridge,
other
Wisconsin.
program.
Hmm?
Yes, I've heard of other programs in different states where white property owners were, I guess, selling their homes to black people at a lower rate so they can make these areas much more diverse. Are you willing to do something like that?
I mean, it wouldn't bother me to sell my house to a black person. You know, we're not moving. It's one. It's a little more of a complex question because it's really hard to find property here in Whitefish Bay now, and the cost of living, the price of the homes has gone like skyrocketed. In the last 20 years, our house is probably worth 3 times what we paid for it. So it makes it a challenge for to create more diversity in this community because of the affordability of houses. But it's the first I've heard of it. I would be open to learning more about it, and I don't know, maybe researching some sort of a program where there's some sort of incentives or something to help create more diversity by giving discounts or something like that on the real estate. But I don't know if that's possible, but it'd be something to look into for sure.
Oh yes, I've heard of this program, and it has been helping out a lot of different people who, I guess, white people who feel the need or who have a desire to make corrections to the error. I mean, that's only if they're sincere about what they're saying. My last question is, you used the term, I guess, anti-Semitism. Could you give me a logical definition of what a Semite is?
I wouldn't say I'm an expert on anti-Semitism.
No,
but,
just Semite, not anti, just
right.
Semite.
I'm not positive I could give you an accurate definition, to be honest with you, but I can try. I would define it as I don't even know where the term came from, to be honest with you. But I think I would define it as somebody of Jewish descent. I really don't know. That's a great question. I'm not sure.
Okay. Thank you guys for taking my call. Now I'll mute my line.
Right on. That's interesting. Wowzers. That's why I said confusion, because I don't get confused about what it means to be classified as white. I've seen that happen a few times where the person who said that they're Jewish, you ask them, what does that mean? And they turn around and say, man, I don't know. I'm still thinking and learning on that myself, Gus T. Like, what? Like, wait a minute.
I'm looking up on Google now. But
see, come on. See, he didn't say that.
The term Semite before.
He didn't say that about what it means to be classified as white. And that was what he told us from the very beginning, that I am a white man, 48 years experience being a white man. White male, white man, right here. He didn't have to go Googling what that mean and all the rest of it. White. Got it. When was the last time that you had someone classified as black in your Whitefish Bay residence, Mr. Arnold?
In my house? I don't know that I don't think that I've ever had a black person in our house, come to think of it. So no. I mean, I socialize with black people all the time, but I don't think any of them have actually been in our house. But I've got a lot of good black friends, and they're great people.
Okay. Now, see, that's why I asked that question before. Now, is it logical to suspect that, hey, maybe Mr. Arnold is racist? Maybe, because he does live in a racially restricted region, and he grew up in a racially restricted region where they told, well, if not racist jokes, said racist things about black people. So, and he's benefited, as he said, from racism, so maybe he practices racism too. No black people at that sound like Nancy. I should have asked her that too. Like, have you, she already told us you didn't invite no black people to the event. Have you invited any black people over to your house for tea, crumpets, biscuits, talks about racial covenants to see, because that seems like a small one, and even there, no. How long have you lived at your current property in Whitefish Bay, Mr. Arnold?
22 years, 23 years.
Quarter century, not nary a nigger crossed this here door seal. When's the last time you had a White House guest who was not a family member or relative of you or your wife?
Well, my kids have their friends over here all the time, so probably either today or yesterday for that with the kids, and for us it was probably, I don't know, a week ago or so.
That was another, in my opinion, that was another one where Mr. Arnold's volume dropped a little bit, but that's the sort of thing that I think is important. Now, you all, I guess, friend is a very relative thing, and that's kind of one of the tacky excuses that racist white people give all the time, that to say that they are not racist, that they have so-called black friends. Now, I don't know what that means. They have a black person that shines their shoes every now and then, washes their car every now and then. They say hi to on the freeway every now and then. They don't call a nigger every now and then. Like, I don't know what that means, because friend is so relative to everybody. You all can interpret how close is this friend. If it's a good friend, would they be invited to your house once a year, twice? Would they get to come to the house over 20 years? Would they at least get to come one time, 2 times? Not at all. You can decide how frequently you all have house guests.
They'd be welcome. They would be welcome.
But barbecue for the summertime, maybe we'll get the barbecue. For the 220 program, because I said I didn't even get done with the Bayside, way back to high school. So this is north. This is 2 suburbs north of Milwaukee. 2 suburbs north of Whitefish Bay. Bayside, like I said, population a little bit less than 5,000. Hardly any black people. I think it's even fewer black people in Bayside than it is in Whitefish Bay. Like, so you said there were hardly any black people in school, maybe 1 or 2 here or there. The 220 program kicks in. Does that like immediately change? So you go from having like 1 or 2 black people to having like 5 or 6, or was it like build up, or how do you remember the 220 program impacting your school experience?
Yeah, I think it probably started before I was in kindergarten or maybe in first grade. So I don't even, I mean, it was like 1 to 2 people in each class of maybe 20 to 30 kids. So it wasn't like a noticeable ramp up by any means. To me, it was just kind of a few, black people sprinkled throughout each grade.
Few sprinkled. Okay. Do you remember like there being discussion about this program, like yay, nay, we want it, don't want? Like, do you remember like your parents, relatives talking about this?
I was too young for that.
Too young?
No, I don't recall it yet.
Okay. I
mean, I don't think anybody was opposed to the program. I think, from what I recall, my parents were happy about it, but I don't know that anybody was like talking about it one way or the other, to be honest.
Gotcha. I know when we spoke prior to the program, you said you've been able to talk to some of the black students who, benefited or at least participated. I'll say that participated in this 220 program. Yep. This now defunct 220 program. What are some of their and I think even some of these black people that you now work with, you all went to school with at that time period. So what are some of their recollections that they've shared with you?
I hate to speak for other people. I don't. I think that they got a good education. it seemed like they were happy, but I'd say, talk to some of them. I think I'm not positive. I thought our mayor, Chevy Cavalier, who's black, is, I think he might be a product of that system. Happy to give you the names of the people that were in it, but I don't want to talk for them. But to me, it was a positive experience. I'm glad the program existed. I'm extremely sad and ashamed that they've kind of put a curtain onto this program, because I think it was good for our community.
Well, Scott Walker did not, as did many.
There's some bad politicians out there, no doubt.
As did many other white people throughout the state of Wisconsin, obviously, and importantly, they got rid of it way in advance of our current DEI purge. So if they didn't get rid of it then, it for sure would have been trashed right now. Don't you think that's true, Mr. Arnold?
Yeah, most likely. That's almost guaranteed.
I agree 1,000%. Any chance, based on what you see in terms of, man, while I was in Wisconsin, I saw white dairy farmers in Wisconsin are suing because of current aid programs that President Biden put in to help black farmers. For years of racism against black farmers, the white dairy farmers are suing. That's a part of Wisconsin's Dairy Month, which, it's over now, but that was all month of June. They were doing Dairy Month, but that's what they're doing in Wisconsin. Do you see any way that they could bring a program back like that back in the state of Wisconsin to help get more black children in school with white students?
It would take a political overhaul. I think Wisconsin is moving in a better political environment, but that takes a lot of time. There's been a lot of gerrymandering in our politics here in Wisconsin, and so it's an uphill battle, no doubt. I'd love to see it, but I think it's pretty challenging where we're at now. Milwaukee Public Schools has also had a lot of challenges. There's been with Milwaukee School MPS board. There's been some unethical activity, borderline on criminal activity, and so that hasn't helped the reputation of Milwaukee Public Schools. So and then I think the political environment, nationally, is to kind of create more funding for private schools and take away money from the public schools. So it's an uphill battle, no doubt. I don't see. I'd love to see it come back, but I don't see that in the near future
at all. I can't imagine that at all. That what Mr. Arnold said, though, I saw that every day in terms of Milwaukee Public School, affectionately known as MPS. Every day it was financial malfeasance and a deadline to produce a fiscal budget for the school, and they missed the deadline, and you got all these accounting irregularities, and what's going on here? Yep. And again, this is a majority black city, so it's majority black students who are going to pay the price for all of this regardless. Now, all of this, I guess you can call that 1A. The 1B is the lead crisis at the schools, and how many schools got to be shut down, and how many children have been poisoned, because you can't repair lead, like that's permanent. Freddie Gray, Baltimore, same thing, but can't do anything about that. And then even it was at 1C, so we got the lead, we got the financial problems. Then they just said straight violence, which is connected to the lead and financial problems. They said they had 24 students killed in Milwaukee Public Schools over the last calendar year. I suspect they were all black. I would even wager they were probably all black males, but whatever. And then way down at the bottom of the list, it was some of the schools didn't have soap, which I just personally was shocked, because I've never heard of a school that did not have soap in the middle of a lead crisis and COVID and everything else, and you don't even have soap at something like, woo! Milwaukee Public School does not seem like a thriving environment for, and then the statistic that I heard while I was at the University of Wisconsin, where they said Milwaukee Public Schools, they graduate about 35% of the black males who attend.
Yeah, that's a problem. It's there's been a lot of mismanagement. I think parenting is an issue within the inner city of Milwaukee. I think that lead is a problem. Good teachers is a problem. There's been a lot of financial and mismanagement of the schools. I think a lot of disorganization within Milwaukee Public Schools. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges there.
I think racism is a problem. Anytime you have a majority black city, I already know this is that Cavalier Johnson can do whatever he like. First elected black mayor of Milwaukee, which I kind of found embarrassing since it's a majority black city and at this late date, but whatever. Please, majority black city, that's the best you can do, trying in a system of white supremacy racism. In fact, hang on one second, though, just because even with the politics, while I was in your city, that's not your city, you're in Whitefish Bay. While I was in your neighboring city, Cream City, I was at the City Hall meeting on facial recognition technology cameras being acquired by Milwaukee Police Department. The representatives for the Milwaukee Police Department did not look like Cavalier Johnson. They were all people who looked like you, classified as white. And then all the people who came as representatives for the camera, they did not look like Cavalier Johnson. They too looked like you, Mr. Arnold, classified as white. I thought that also. Now you want to tell me about the problems and why things are messed up and bad black parents and who runs Milwaukee? That's who runs Milwaukee. People classified as white. Same thing I said about the jury. It could have been all 12 white jurors for the Sade C. Robinson trial. Who runs Milwaukee and the world? People classified as white. So anything that's messed up in Milwaukee, black parents, all of that, who is to blame? White people. But that was a stunning visual. They got that on TV. Did you see that meeting about the facial recognition technology in Milwaukee?
No. Nope, sorry, I didn't see that one.
Woo, man, I'm so glad I was there for that in person, Mr. Arnold. Did you see? I'm just checking local Milwaukee thing. Did you see? This was on 60 Minutes, but this was some years back. They got the archive footage at the University of Wisconsin. If you want to check it out, did you see Michael McGee and the Milwaukee Black Panthers in the 1990s? They were out in the streets marching, and they were upset about racism against black people in Milwaukee, and they said if things don't improve, they would go out and kill white people. Did you see this on 60 Minutes?
No, I did not. I was young at the time that movement was around, but I just remember hearing bits and pieces of it when I was pretty young.
Okay. Mr. Arnold did tell us he's 48, so, he wouldn't have been ancient fella at the time. This is like 90s, so we're talking about 30 years ago when all this, he'd been maybe late teens, early 20s at the time of all this. Yep. I hadn't heard about all of this either, and I don't live in Wisconsin, so all these people were new to me. But this is I was stunned. This is 60 Minutes. That's still on TV. I was stunned watching the archives of all of this and seeing what they were complaining about and how very little has changed. Did you, being someone who's lived on the outskirts of Milwaukee for most of your life, childhood, and adult, what do you hear white people say about Milwaukee?
They will say, I would say that they'll say it's a nice town on a Great Lake. Beer capital of the world, and I'd say that they, for the majority, I would say most people think it's safe in Milwaukee. I guess in the suburbs, I would say most people say that, and I would say that they, it's a family-oriented town, good for raising families, low traffic. Summers are great here. Winters can be a little chilly. Yeah, I'd say that's what I would say most people would say about Milwaukee. I think mostly that it's a good place to raise a family.
You say white people say that Milwaukee is safe? Did I hear that correctly?
Well, I'd say they say that about the suburbs, but yeah, they probably are trying to avoid going into the inner city at night. Because it's definitely, crime is a problem in Milwaukee, but it is in other cities as well.
That confounded me so much. I'm wondering if you were being dishonest with us there, Mr. Arnold, because it sounded in your answer originally, you said it's safe and it's a good place to raise a family. But then when I asked, I said white
suburbs.
So that was I asked about Milwaukee. I said
you
that
asked me what white people would say.
About Milwaukee. I didn't ask them about this. I said specifically in the question, as a white person who has lived on the outskirts for the duration of your childhood and adult life, what do white people say about Milwaukee? I didn't ask about the suburbs. I know what white people think about Bayside.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think of Milwaukee as the greater Milwaukee. I don't really separate the suburbs versus Milwaukee, but certainly there's a lot of people that do. So I understand what you're saying. So, to those people, they probably are concerned with crime and drugs and safety in Milwaukee.
Huh. Do white people, do they grouse about, do they complain about Cavalier Johnson? I don't know. What do you hear did they mention him at all?
The people I talk to, I think, are positive with what he's doing. But it's politics, and you'll probably hear both people on both sides of the aisle. But I think he's making some positive changes in Milwaukee. He's really focused on trying to make the streets safer, traffic patterns, so make the streets so that you aren't able to speed down the roads, make it more bike friendly, try to make it more family friendly, but it's not an easy job.
Facts. They do speed down the road frequently in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the 14-year-olds who might have a beverage or three. Have you been to Warnemont Park in Cudahy, Mr. Arnold?
Probably once. I can't remember, though.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm not that familiar with it.
Okay. He says probably once. Have you been to Cudahy?
Yes, I have.
Okay. South of Milwaukee proper. It is part of Milwaukee County. Cudahy would also be a racially restricted region. Don't have no whole lot of niggers in Cudahy. And it looks like the same thing with Whitefish Bay. Like when you step over, all these places are Milwaukee is not very big, so these places are very, 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 very close. Cudahy and Whitefish Bay, and even if you lived in the center of Milwaukee, you could get to all these places very quick.
Cudahy is basically right near the Milwaukee County Airport. So if you've been to the Milwaukee County Airport, you may have probably drove right next to Cudahy.
That is exactly what I said. And importantly, in the Sade Robinson murder trial, when the convicted white killer's ex-girlfriend got on the stand, the dramatic moment, she was one of the last witnesses on the stand the day before jury verdict was given, and she said, "Where did you all go?" "The secret beach." That's where Sade Robinson's first remains washed up on the beach at. She said, "We go down to the secret beach." And she said, he wouldn't even tell me the name of the beach. He was so secretive about it. And it was Warnemont Park. And she said, we would go down to the secret beach in Cudahy. And she said, the only way that I would know, like, we were getting close is because it's close to the airport. And I had a flutter because I had just this is my first time going to Milwaukee. I flew into the airport, and then I went to Warnemont Park about 4 or 5 days after I flew in. That was the first thing that I said when we got to the park was, "Oh man, You have to go right by the airport to get to, like, it was a plane flying overhead right as we were driving into the park to go down to the beach. Like, oh, wow, this is like, when I go out of here, we're going right by Wanamont Park. She said the same thing, and then, bam, like, the airport, right, you can look on the map. They are right next to each other, Wanamont Park, airport to get out of MKE. Anyway, did you see in the news for the past year any of the information about the murder and dismemberment of 19-year-old Sade Robinson?
I mean, I probably saw a news story, but I'm not all that familiar with it. I try to avoid the news, to be honest with you. I don't know if that's good or bad, but
I don't know. I've heard that before. Yeah, I don't know. It's different. You're classified as white. I watched a lot of Milwaukee news for the past year, especially so in the last 4 or 5 months before I was going to Milwaukee. And wow, the Sade Robinson trial. You want to talk about system of white supremacy, racism converging in so many different ways. But that's what brought me to Milwaukee, was to watch that trial live in person every day. So I got to see the lack of black people on the jury up close in person. The jury box was literally right in front of my face every day because I sat on their side of the courtroom. And then they put a map of Milwaukee County up every day, all day in court sometimes, because Sade Robinson's remains were dumped all over Milwaukee County. In fact, some of her remains washed up in Illinois. But her white killer, he lives close to Cudahy and went down to do his dismembering and cutting in Wanamont Park in Cudahy, where there's no black people. Then he drove all the way north to 31st and Lisbon, that's way north Milwaukee, to dump her body in like 1.2 miles, literally. I Google mapped it and everything. Literally almost walked it myself. 1.2 miles from the spot where Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment was. I don't think that's an accident at all. And all of that is what North Milwaukee, the segregated part. That's where the niggers are. That's where you dump the trash. And that's what came out in the trial over and over and over. In fact, the map where he dumped the body, it matches up perfectly with the current lead crisis in Milwaukee, which heavily impacting black people. Dare I say that lead crisis is racist chemical biological warfare impacting black people. Although they do have lead problems throughout the state of Wisconsin, it is super concentrated on black people. Anywho, I had one more current event report, since he wasn't familiar with Sade Robinson's case. Did you see out in, I think, let me see if I got my pronunciations correct. Is it Waukesha? Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yep.
See, got him. Okay. Now, did you see the case with Nikita Kasip, 17-year-old white teen? He killed his white mom and his white stepdad. He said he was trying to start a race war. He had some sort of cockamamie scheme. He was going to assassinate President Trump. Like I said, this is all to start a race war here in the U.S. Did you see your fellow Wisconsin neighbor Nikita Kasip? All this happened just like a couple weeks back.
No, sorry, I missed that one too.
Man,
I'm trying to focus on the positive things in the community instead of dwelling on the negative.
I hear that, but I mean,
a lot of my time and work is like trying to, work with, children and organizations that are trying to create positive impact in the community instead of, learning about the terrible things going on here.
I hear you, but I mean, this is the land of Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't know. When that sort of thing happens, that's not the sort of thing I want to. Well, Kyle Rittenhouse did happen. We just want to focus on the positive, and I made some great cucumbers and new salad dressing today. That's great, and I do like cucumbers, but I mean, whoa. I do think Kyle Rittenhouse is important, and that's something that we should focus on and study. And really, white people with guns, period, I think is important and should be studied. I'm sorry?
Yeah, guns. I was going to say, I think guns are a real problem in Milwaukee and all around the country. But and I don't think it's just white people with guns. I think it's everybody with guns. I think I wish that we could get all the guns off of all the streets and take it away from everybody, but our Constitution's not going to allow us to do that, and we're far from. I kind of wanted to see a gun buyback program at one point that would figure out a way. They've done it in other countries, but figure a way to get guns off the streets, because that's, I think, one of the biggest problems now, and I don't think we're ever getting there as a country, but boy, it would be nice.
That's certainly one I've concluded. White people don't seem to have a problem getting guns away from Leroy. As long as black people are shooting other black people, they don't really have a problem with that. They have lots of gun buyback programs for black people. In terms of white people, the reason that lots of black people have guns is because white people are about having guns. If white people did not promote guns and gun culture and Second Amendment, you would not have all of these black people with guns. And or if black people had guns and said we were going to be constructive, what I mentioned about the Black Panther Party in Milwaukee, if that was a widespread theme amongst black people, well, then also black people wouldn't have guns. But because that's not the case,
I'm not sure I agree with you on that. But
what do you mean you don't agree? What part do you not agree with?
I don't think that the reason that black people have or want guns is because white people also have guns, or I think there's a lot more to it than just that.
You did agree that we are in a system of white supremacy racism. Is that true?
I would say that we were. I'd like to think that we're getting to a better place. There are certain.
I didn't ask what you would like to think. The question was, we're in a system of white supremacy racism, yes or no? Being truthful.
I would say that our laws and our society was set up for it, yes.
Why all the pussyfooting? That sort of thing makes me wonder, like, are you trying to deceive us? Are you trying to lie to us? Like, what? Come on. That being the case with regards to firearms, man, white people, Second Amendment and all that, and you're not going to touch and frequently coming and sounding as though it is about racism, that you're not going to come with your no-count law, especially when Obama was in the White House. Oh, my God. Yeah, you're not going to come and see. You're not ignorant. You know this. It's not black. It's not Leroy in Milwaukee that's out here promoting gun laws, and you all aren't going to put bans on automatic fire. It's white people in a system of white supremacy racism. If white people didn't promote guns and gun culture, we wouldn't have all this.
Well, I would say guns were a problem well before Obama was president. And
white supremacy racism was in effect before obesity, so it was the same white culture. Yes?
There was certainly racism before Obama, yes. And yes, segregation, and there are white supremacists still around, and they were around prior to Barack Obama.
White promotion of gun culture. I mean, Charlton Heston goes back even before you were born. Former NRA. What he said, from my cold dead hand. Remember that? You're old enough. Remember that?
No. I'm very anti-gun, so no, I don't follow the NRA. I don't want to hear anything they have to say, to be honest.
You are aware of the NRA, yes?
Yes.
Okay, and you know in their heyday that was not a lot of black people promoting gun rights, yes?
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay.
I don't know the facts, but I'm sure that it was definitely a very racist organization.
Right on. Let me make sure I didn't miss any questions from our listeners before. Or actually, I do have one question, and I'll double check with our listeners. I appreciate what you just said, because you walked me to a super important question. You said that you you said you personally are not that enthused about checking the news every day because it has a lot of bad stories about Sade Robinson and Nikita Kossip and, real depressing things. You'd rather focus on things that are constructive and helping children and doing something that's going to help lots of people in the area, the Whitefish Bay, or even beyond, helping folks in Wisconsin. Hey, that is bravo. I would like to make a compensatory investment request. I was in Milwaukee to cover the Sade C. Robinson murder trial. 19-year-old black female. She was in school. She went to Milwaukee Area Technical College. She was just about to graduate and maybe go into the armed services. Just 19. She's just beginning her life. She gets killed, dismembered, and has her body parts thrown all over Milwaukee County. Like I said, some of her remains washed up in Illinois by this 33-year-old racist white man. He just gets convicted just a few days ago. They're going to sentence him on August 1st at Milwaukee County Courthouse. But her mother, Sade Robinson's mom, Miss Sheena Scarborough, she was a guest on our program, and I mean, you are a parent. You have an 18-year-old son. You could even imagine if your child had been killed, much less killed and dismembered. And they don't even have her skull. Didn't even get all the remains. They've asked the white convicted killer for a year and a half now. Basically, won't say, well, where's her skull? Can we at least, get some closure and bury all of her remains? Have some humanity here. Won't say a word. And so Dahmer, because he did the same thing, making trophies out of humans, out of black people's skulls. But Miss Scarborough, Sade Robinson's mom, she has a foundation, Sade's Voice Foundation. It is to help crime victims in Milwaukee, children crime victims, because her daughter was 19, and that task force that they have been messing around with in Wisconsin for missing and murdered black females. They've been trying for 3 years and giving lame excuses. We don't have funding and all this. Sheila Stubbs came down for the verdict the last day of that's State Representative Sheila Stubbs. She came for the last day of the trial for the verdict out front talking about, I am dedicated because of this to get that task force. You said you're about helping these sort of organizations. I would like to request that you make a compensatory investment request to the Sade's Voice Foundation. It is a 501c3. Their GoFundMe is right there. Like, man, you can, it should be, in fact, it can be one personal from you, Mr. Arnold, and then you should go back to the organization that you're a part of, the Bay Bridge, because there should be a lot of white people who, if they're serious, they should know about this case. Maybe you don't watch the news, but man, everybody that I talked to while I was in Wisconsin, they knew about this case, and it is a disgrace, particularly if you got to see any of those photos. Ask Bay Bridge as well. Make a generous contribution to Sade's Voice Foundation. It was, and if you don't know about the case, go check it out. You can see the verdict, all that, what happened, but it is, and the racism of this case, where he dumped the body and all that, when you see the map and where he lit, Warnermont, all of it. But you make a personal contribution and then get Bay Bridge to do the same. Is that something that you're willing to do, Mr. Arnold?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking up the information now, but yeah, absolutely.
Sade's.
I try to give a donation away every day.
Hey. Sade's Voice Foundation. Shouldn't be, and it shouldn't be no cheapie, like no 25 cents or $5. Like, come on, you're a white property owner in Whitefish Bay. You have benefited from and probably practiced white supremacy racism in a variety of ways, you personally and Bay Bridge, because I'm sure there's no way. How many people are in that group, Bay Bridge? How many people do you think?
Probably 30 to 40.
Oh my God, man! You all should be able to come up with something chunky, because I guarantee you, at least 25 people in that group. All you'd have to do is say, "Have you all heard of Sade Robinson?" Oh my God, yes! What a disgusting. What now? Check? Oh, yes, because all you got to do is send them. It's 501c3. She's trying to do the exact work that you all talked about. Maybe you can even bring her mom over to Whitefish Bay and do like a sauna and recuperate and just anything. But yes.
No, I'm happy to. I'm trying to get as much info as I can right now.
Sade's Foundation.com. Right there. They even did a segment on her.
How's Sade spelled?
SADES Voice VOICE Foundation FOUNDATION.com. Sade's Voice Foundation.com. But I was going to say too, they just did WISN. They did a 1 hour special on her on Very Local. It just aired in May. It was like 2 or 3 days before the trial started, or not last month, 2 months ago now at the end of May. But they did an hour special. It goes over all the details of the murder. Her mom is front and center and talking about what happened. She talks about the foundation and it is, and that is the first time ever that they did a 1 hour segment on anybody, and they've covered lots of local crimes. This was the first time that they spent a whole hour on one case, the Sade C. Robinson murder in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I mean, you want to talk about racism, white supremacy? In my view, it does not get any more flagrant, because I said repeatedly, how did a 19-year-old get into all these bars with some 33-year-old white dude to do all this drinking? Oh, they don't really do that much carding in Milwaukee. I see. But yes, investigate. I think that would be fantastic if you all can. And like I said, it should be definitely massive contribution, because we're serious about racism, and this was a disgraceful crime, act of racism. Really, this white dude trying to be Jeff Dahmer 2025. Let's see, make sure I didn't miss anybody. Victim, did you have anything, another question you wanted to get in before we let Mr. Arnold enjoy the rest of his Tuesday evening? Got confused about my day.
Hello, Gus. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes. I just asked Mr. Arnold just one last question. I believe you told us about a time you went to a park with you and your child, I believe.
Yeah, I was talking about going to Lincoln Park, which is there's a local swimming pool there. There's a golf course there too, but that was where we were one of very few white people at the pool there.
Okay. Does your child, he or she know how to swim?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. He took some lessons. But yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, why do you ask? I'm just kind of curious. I'm just curious why you ask.
Well, I was just asking to see if you were yourself proficient in swimming, and if you were, to add to your altruism, so to speak, you can possibly tutor black children for free how to swim.
No, I think that's a great idea. In the Jewish texts, one of the 10 Commandments, maybe it's not 10 Commandments, but is to teach your kids how to swim. And so, yeah, that's a very good idea. That's also a challenge that a lot of the African American community either doesn't know how to swim, isn't familiar with swimming, scared of swimming, whatever it may be. And that's something that, we all need to work on, amongst a whole list of other things.
Would you be willing to do something like that, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, but that's it for me, guys. Thank you again.
Great request. Great request. They have so much data, and it's been like increasing data over the past 3 years, kind of since George Floyd, last 5 years or so, where black people because of white people practicing the system of white supremacy over many, many centuries. This goes all the way back to slavery, Mr. Arnold. I just found out about this myself, but white slave owners didn't want their slaves to escape, so they wouldn't teach them to swim and would get them to be fearful of water. This continued for many, many years, and then I'm sure you know many, many white people, they did not want black people to swim with their children, so they bombed pools, and same thing, Whitefish Bay put up restrictions, no niggers here, you can't swim here. Cedarburg, no niggers here, you can't swim here, and they got whole books and dissertations about that sort of thing that went on for decades. Really? So the legacy of that is you have lots and lots and lots of black people who cannot swim, and this impacts the choices that they make on days when it hits triple-digit heat, like what you just talked about when your family went safely to Lincoln Park and then safely to the swim pool in Cedarburg. In fact, while I was visiting Cream City, I went kayaking in Thinsville, racially restricted region. There were no black people kayaking with me, and there were no black people at the park where we launched our boats in Thinsville, as I expected there to be. I told other black people about this, and I said, hey, do you want to go kayaking? They said, kayaking? What? I can't even swim. I don't go kayaking. I said, dang. Like, go ahead. Did you have a question?
Can I ask you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can I ask you? Did you feel unsafe being in Thiensville?
I felt unsafe being in Wisconsin. Now, Thiensville specifically, I mean, we already said Milwaukee is dangerous. They don't even drive safely. It's because they drive up in your yard. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I felt unsafe the whole time I was in Wisconsin. But Thiensville specifically, yes, because the day that we arrived, it was Lion Fest. So we're at the park, and they're getting all the amusement rides and everything, and so it's like a gathering crowd of people, all white. I was already the only black person on our kayaking tour. So now I'm the only black person out in the woods, outskirts of Wisconsin. I'm the only black person. And now, even at a big crowd, I'm the only black person. And it's nothing but white people in an area, as you said, that was deliberately engineered to exclude people like me, and frequently violently so. Now, I didn't feel like somebody was about to beat me up or anything, but woo, we were there in the morning. Thank goodness. It was about 10 a.m. Well, if we had to hang out like 9 p.m. or something, you said the white people, they don't feel like, woo-wee, you don't want to be downtown Milwaukee. Man, I would have felt very different if we had to hang out in Thiensville at like 9 p.m.
And did anyone like say anything or, look at you or give you a reason to feel that way? Or is that just our own, I don't know, prejudices or insecurities or what,
I mean,
I'm not saying just you, it's just people in general.
One, Thiensville is not that far from Milwaukee. It's not like I had to hop in the car and drive no hour or 30 minutes or even 20 minutes. Like, it's just not that far from an area where there are tons of black people. Just that you can hop in the car and drive maybe 20 minutes, and now it's no black people. That alone is startling because it's so unnatural. Things have been engineered to literally create an invisible force field for niggers. Literally, they showed it on the map. Literally, once you cross this intersection, ain't no niggers. You feel it. There's a transmogrification in the atmosphere. Nothing need be said. It's not like you need but just that, you can literally cross the street and you go from an environment that is about 30% black in Deer Park to now 0 in Thiensville.
So how do we end that on both sides? Like,
by acknowledging
get it so black people
white
feel
people
comfortable
are
in white
dedicated.
Areas,
it's not about. That's the
in
same thing
areas.
Nancy said. That's the exact same thing Nancy said, and that's not it. You're putting the burden on the victim. What is done is acknowledge. If what I said is true, if white people are dedicated to racism, white supremacy, it has nothing to do with me being comfortable. It's, hey, white people in Thiensville, Cedarsburg, Whitefish Bay, and we did Fond du Lac, Sheboygan, we just keep right on rolling. white people in general, they are dedicated to the system of white supremacy, racism, and they don't want to live around black people.
Not all. You can't say that about all white people.
The evidence.
You know,
how many black people have you had in your house? We don't even have to go to all. How many black people have you had in your house again?
None, but that
okay.
Does that make me I don't think that means that I'm dedicated to segregation or racism. I mean,
that doesn't exactly show a Herculean anti-racist effort, in my opinion.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And you're one of the good ones, right? You're one of the good ones.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
You're one of the good ones.
Yeah.
You say you're one of the ones that's not racist, and you're working against this. So, my God.
And I could be better.
Way better. That's why I said that check to Sade's Voice Foundation should be massive, because it should compensate for some of your slack in this area too. And the same would go for Bay Bridge. And it's got to be nothing but slack, because I mean, dang, I'm doing the same thing I did at the meeting in Whitefish. I'm just turning around to look at the audience. I'm just looking at the evidence. How many black people live here? How many black people have you had as a guest at your house? Oh, okay. That's what I'm saying. Like, how serious are you all about replacing white supremacy with justice? Because the evidence seems pretty overwhelming that the people who are white people who are dedicated to racism, white supremacy, they are winning, hands down. This is exactly what they want.
I'll argue. I'll say there's a lot of white and black people in the city of Milwaukee and the surrounding areas that are dedicated to trying to end segregation, make Milwaukee safe for everybody, trying to, make each community more diverse. I think there's a lot of people that are working towards some positive outcomes. I think it's hard to get, the outcomes that we want, but I do feel like there are people in this community working together to try to make some good changes.
We couldn't even keep the 220 program, Mr. Arnold. We couldn't even keep the 220 program.
That's right. There are people because there's people working against it too. But, that was a different administration. Politics is tough. It sucks.
He said it's tough. I reckon, Mr. Arnold. All righty. We'll, I'm going to have to keep I'm hoping I don't have to revisit the 414 because it's unsafe. And I don't know.
I welcome you to come back. I want you to come back. I'd like you to help kind of spearhead some positive change here.
It's kind of dangerous out there,
Mr. For that. It's really not.
Maybe you let me come stay with you. Maybe you can add one of those units, and I'll stay with you. That way I know I have a comfortable spot. I can hang out for a week, do some research. I can go back to UW, Milwaukee, and all the rest of it. Maybe the Jewish Center will have another cool event. Maybe. I'll put it in my cap. Maybe. And then you can tell me what you've done. You can have a really impressive ledger of counter-racist work that you've done. So look here, Gus, man, I have been on it. You challenged me. Look what I've done. Look here. I got reports, pictures, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, come on Martin Luther King Day and see all the work we do.
I can't wait. That's next day. Okay, January 2026. January 2026. We'll have to see. Mr. Brent Arnold, you can visit the website for Bay Bridge. He lives on Bay Ridge, no B, with the Racist Covenant, but Bay Bridge. And he says they're doing work to try and get non-white people allegedly to the white folks Bay Area and get rid of racism. He says, check them out, see what they're doing, keep tabs on them. Thank you so much for sharing a teaspoon of your time. We should have Mr. Jackson on the program to follow, Reggie Jackson for listeners. Black male, Mr. Arnold said he learned so much from him, so he should be on the program to follow you, so hopefully we'll get that nice 1-2 punch in. He'll fill in any gaps. Maybe he'll even remember some of the information that he shared with you about your own property and such. But man, much obliged for sharing a bit of your time and energy with us, and super generous investment for Sade's Voice Foundation.com, legacy of Sade C. Robinson. Very important, super disgraceful what happened at 19 years old, man. 19. Come on, your son is only 18, right?
Yep, 118, 115.
See, come on.
But yep, it's terrible.
Come on. In fact, since you teach your children about racism, you should teach you and your children should watch that very local special. It's even less than an hour, so it's not massive time investment. You all should watch that special because your children are almost the same age as Sade. And this happened right here in our neighborhood, and it's related to, and they discuss redlining. They say the same thing that I do. They start the program, Redlining and Racism in Milwaukee. It's like two different cities. Indeed. But
I will check it out.
Much obliged, Mr. Arnold. Very local, WISN. It's on YouTube and everything.
Huh?
Thank you for sharing a bit of your time and energy, and we will chat it up. I'll let you know if I get back to Wisconsin.
Sounds good. You're welcome anytime.
Yes, sir. You have a great evening. We'll be in touch.
All right. Take care.
Yes, sir. Context of White Supremacy. Again, our guest from Whitefish Bay. And again, he said he thought that was like some joke or some nonsense or whatever, that people were just being cheeky about the reason. No, which he said, no, that is for reals. And the folks at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, amongst others, said, oh yeah, Whitefish Bay. They weren't the only ones who said that to me, but they thought, oh yeah, that's yeah. And then they proceeded to get to the covenants and start showing the exact street addresses and see, no niggers here, no Ethiopians, no niggers, no Ethiopians, no like they went, woo, second most constructive travel experience of my time on the planet. It will take a whole lot to knock California out of that top spot, which is crazy because I lived in California for like a long time. But yeah, Milwaukee, I did learn a lot in Milwaukee and Whitefish Bay and Thinsville and Glendale and Brown Deer and Cudahy. I got to see quite a bit of Milwaukee County, man. I got to get whole maps of Milwaukee County because I didn't just hang out in one spot during my time there. Anyway, hopefully we'll do it 2 times. We'll take a quick commercial break, and then we will be right back. Context of White Supremacy. What did Gus T learn while he was in Wisconsin?
I didn't even know about these bars and stuff. Like, you be thinking you know everything your child, you know, especially when they're grown.
Context of White Supremacy. Again, the address for the foundation, Sade's Voice Foundation.com. Sade's SADES Voice Foundation.com. Did you all hear the white power towards the end of the broadcast where Mr. Arnold, he said that he tries to make a donation every day? Now, I mean, that could be a quarter, $1. I'm, worthless Negro from Virginia. Or, hey, I could donate 10 cents every day, I think, and say, hey, man, hey, I'm out here doing it BIG, man. I donate all these little Negro organizations. I donate every day. Man, they get a dime, but I donate every day. That's what it could be. But I mean, wow, to have that sort of disposable income where you could make a donation. Now, even let's say it's just $50. Now, that's not massive either. You can't go out and put a down payment on a car or a house with $50. But I know many, many non-white people, including myself. Now, I could do a dime every day. I could not donate $50 every day. Further evidence, you don't just benefit, you practice white supremacy racism, and you got the loot to show for it. You got a house in Whitefish Bay. Anyway, man, I got a new term today, prejudicism. Have you all heard that one before? Prejudicism? Do they say that? What does that mean? Because I thought you just say prejudice. You're being prejudiced. You're practicing prejudice. What? Word Smiths, and that's one even. Now, where did he say prejudicism? Once he said it, I asked, would it be logical for a non-white person to think, suspect, Mr. Arnold, you are a racist. You grew up in a racially restricted region. You live, own property in a different racially restricted region. Practically went to school with no Negras. Benefited from all this. You probably practice white supremacy racism. Is it logical for a non-white person to think that? He said, whoa. You're not being fair. You practicing prejudice. Now, he eventually did say, yes, that would be logical, but man, I'm out here, I'm in the fake prejudice, but it would be logical. I could see how someone might think that. Just following logic. Now, especially because I didn't know at that point. Now, how many niggers have you had at your house? Even if he had said, I had 10 black people over, Giannis and them won the championship and I lost my mind, man. Everybody at work came over in the whole neighborhood. So I had about 5, 10, well, maybe about 3. We had at least 2, 3 black people over then. And let me think, what else? Let's see. Obama, when he won the election, we had a shindig. We had about at least 1 or 2 niggers at 0 in a quarter century. Man, they don't have no niggers in the Bay Bridge. Maybe I should ask that. They don't have no niggers in the Bay Bridge group that, hey, come over and we'll go over some of the meeting notes and ideas and, all that. Well, no. Woo, I told you when I went to the meeting out in Whitefish Bay, it was 2 niggers. I was one. Whitefish Bay, same thing. Ain't that far from, you could walk from Whitefish Bay to Milwaukee. It's not like, some super far distance away. No niggers. We had Natia Taylor as a guest on the program, Milwaukee native. We had her on the program in May. She said, man, we grew up out here, man. We didn't spend no time in Whitefish Bay. We didn't. I didn't get no frolicking. I didn't have no slumber parties and childhood playmates. And we didn't. No. Anywho, let's see. If I am gonna remember that. If I have to go back to Milwaukee for any reason, hopefully it'll be short. But if I have to go back for any reason, I'm gonna contact Mr. Arnold. Like, look here, I'm a victim of racism. And you said you're working against racism. You can save me a few nickels. You don't have no niggers. I'll be the first black person ever. You can brag that in. Hey. Having a nigger stay over at my house this weekend. Mm-hmm. He can brag, but you can save me some nickels. That'll be 1 act of counter war. That'll be 2, because hopefully you will make a generous, lots of zeros, commas, generous donation to Sade's Voice Foundation.com. So that'll be 1 alleged act of counter racism, and then he can have Gus T come and hang out, because I really do not want to go back. I told y'all, I said, I said, if I had to go back, if they said, hey, it'll be a monumental step towards, it won't solve the problem, but at least this will move us like halfway towards permanent solution to racism, white supremacy. You got to go back to Milwaukee for the sentencing of Maxwell Anderson. Perish the thought, but what did I say? I said, Mr. Arnold, I wouldn't need no help that time, because it would be, okay, I'm going to fly in that morning, 7:30 a.m., airport close. He'd say, hey, you close to Warnemont Park? You're not that far from downtown Milwaukee. You can get me in there about 7:30 a.m. I'll be conservative. I'll hang out at the airport once I know we're there at 7:30. I can hang out at the airport for an hour. I'll get to the courthouse by 9:30. His sentencing is at 10 a.m. on August 1st. I want my flight back to Seattle 4 p.m. Maybe 3. No later than 4. That way, if there's any delays or goofiness like that, and they mess around and don't leave till 5, I'm still good. In fact, I would get back early enough I could have late supper in Seattle, like 9:30 or so. I would be back. I could go get a late supper here, and I don't even need to bother nobody. You don't need no extra towels at your house this time around, Mr. Arnold, because this is going to be this ain't even a hit it and quit it. I'm barely touching down. I'm just going to see the verdict, hug Miss Scarborough. Okay, no, gotta go. Anybody got anything to say? You better hop in the vehicle as we get back to the air. I think that would be the only time I could take a trip to a different time zone with no luggage. Maybe take like just a safety precaution, like shirt in case there's a spill or something like that, but I don't even need to pack no luggage. Another because we ain't gonna be here no time. Milwaukee today will drive on your porch, drive up in your house in Milwaukee. Let's see. Now, continuing with Milwaukee, he told me about Reggie Jackson. He didn't mention it with you all, but he did. He mentioned it at the beginning. Mr. Reggie Jackson, Black Male. He has a forthcoming book. I'm so mad. Boy, I kicked myself so many times. And it's not, it's really just, it was so much to do, you know. If I had gone to the America's Black Holocaust Museum, if I had gone like a day earlier, I would have seen Mr. Jackson's talk. I went a day. Can you believe it? I went one day late. And I missed his talk. And it wasn't even late because I didn't know. You know, they had the flyers. It was one of those things you had to be at the museum to get the flyer about Mr. Jackson's talk. Anyway, I missed the talk. I brooded about it for a minute. I did the unthinkable and friended him via social media, which I never do. It has to be a rare thing, but I friended him, he accepted, so I reached out to see if we could, and I even told him, man, I was in Milwaukee and missed your talk at the museum and blah, 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 and all this, and he was talking about racism in Milwaukee. I think that's the title of his forthcoming book is, I think it's like Northwest Apartheid. I think that Midwest, that's it. Midwest Apartheid. And it's talking specifically about the history of racism in what we talked about tonight. Whitefish Bay might be in there as well. But that was the talk that he was giving at the museum, and I missed it. So I messaged him to see if we could compensate, maybe have him as a guest on the program, and he could tell us about his book and the talk. Maybe he paid attention to the Sade Robinson trial. Maybe he was there for Jeff Dahmer. All of that. The facial recognition technology, lots of things. Does he remember chatting it up with Mr. Arnold? All that. Reached out to him. He said he would love to chat it up, so I'll give the exact date and time. Might be tomorrow. I just have to double check my email. It's been, I told you, I never even really got settled. Literally, it's not even, I literally just unpacked my suitcase from Milwaukee on Sunday. I literally just kind of tossed it to the side, and we had programs. Thus, you see, we've had programs. I had programs that were uploaded and things to do here, getting settled back in the 206 and all that. It's just been a blur. I really would have loved to just come sit and do nothing. Play with my plants. Haven't seen them in close to a month. Make sure they're all watered and not dying, hanging out, doing well. That's what I would have liked to have done, but it was nothing even close to that. Not at all. Even today, I was angry because today I wanted to go to the farmers market. I had been missing the farmers market here in Seattle because I hadn't been here, and then I missed the Sunday farmers market that's pretty close to where I am, and I missed the Friday farmers market that's close to it. See, as I said about Seattle, farmers markets everywhere. They had this in San Francisco too, but that's California. Duh. I didn't see one farmer's market. I was in Milwaukee for a month. I don't remember seeing one farmer's market. Now, I'm sure they had them. I'm just telling you, I did not stumble upon one farmer's market while I was in Milwaukee for almost a full month. In Seattle, there's going to be a farmer's market about 3 blocks from me on Friday. There's going to be a farmer's market within about 10 blocks from here on Sunday, and that same farmer's market was just there today, and it's there every Tuesday. And there's a farmer's market at the University of Washington on Saturday. That's not even all the ones throughout the city. That's just the ones that are close to areas where I live and or hang out frequently enough that I could get to easily. And I missed them all. Disgusted. I missed them all. Anyway, my one compensation I did for my plant, two, I missed the farmer's markets, but they had strawberries on sale, organic strawberries on sale, 2 pounds worth for $7. Or I think it was even less than that. I think it was like $6.50. It was like $60. Yeah, it wasn't even $7 because I got 4 pounds worth. Oh my God! I lost my mind. I will eat me some strawberries in the summertime. Made my favorite, that strawberry banana peanut butter smoothie with just a drop of pineapple and a hint of cherries. Just a little bit, but it's strawberry banana peanut butter smoothie with a little bit of fresh ginger as well. Wow. Oh, it was it's summertime now too, so to get all that frozen and cool and woo. So that was compensation one. I have that smoothie all the time, but this is like now I've been like the last month been having that smoothie with fresh strawberries, fresh frozen strawberries. It is a subtle improvement. It was so yum. Okay, that's number one. And then two, I've been doing my plant thing, vegan, right, proud, 8 years vegan, don't eat the Cheetos. I've been doing my plants. As I was walking out with my 4+ pounds of strawberries, organic and giddy, and all the yummy smoothies I'm about to have, even thought, dang, you got so many strawberries, you could do strawberry shortcake. But anyway, as I was walking out with my strawberry bliss, they have flipping monsteras, the big version, the Monstera deliciosa, the big one. People that know plants, they're the leaves. They get really big and they have holes in the leaves. I think the fancy word is fenestrations in the leaves so that the light can shine through to the plants that are on the lower level. But they had those. I love that plant. I like that plant even before I was, into plants, because once they can get really, really big. Like they can get as big as a person, and the leaves can get really big too, if you can take care of them well. And they have those, or they had those plants, and they had them on sale. These plants can be very expensive for people who do plants. Like some plants can be like $100, even more. Versions of, and particularly the somewhat albino versions of this plant, the Monstera, can be very expensive. Like the ones that have partially white leaves. I don't know if they have a totally white leaf Monstera. I bet that would be like $1,000. But the ones where like half of the leaf is white, oh man, you're gonna pay like $200. Like for like an itty bitty version of that, it might be $200. For you to get like a big one that's like the size of a person, because they can get really big, 5 feet tall and such. Oh, like I said, $1,000, something like that. And that I have noted that tends to be the case. I have a succulent, an African milk tree. Now I have the green version. I have no idea how they even sell those for very much, because they produce so prolifically. Like mine has produced so many pups since I've had it. I've only had it a month. You can propagate and make bunches of them very, very easy. I think you can even cut them in half and they'll just regrow. So then you'll have 2 plants. You can give one away. But you can get the green ones super cheap, probably because of what I just said. They're so easy to propagate. The white versions, the albino versions, which same thing you've heard before, the albino versions which burn really easy because of their lack of melanin. Those are expensive. Like, woof, The tiny versions, and that African milk tree can also get kind of big. The tiny ones, like maybe a foot tall or so, you might pay $50 for those. Like I said, the green version of that same plant, same size, $12 US, maybe cheaper. Maybe cheaper. They produce so well. I don't even know if the albino versions, I don't know if they produce that prolific. I know the green ones, woo, they will just sprout and sprout and sprout and sprout, and they grow like they can get really big. I don't know if the albino, like I said, it's susceptible. It doesn't have melanin, so you have to watch it. Now, you can't just be throwing him out there in the sun and, whoa, delicate, sensitive, mutant. But that's enough of the plant hour. Swatza. I had heard that before. Our guest, Mr. Arnold, he said that was one of the racist, not racist jokes, but one of the racist slurs from the so-called white Jews that was not Whitefish Bay. That was Bayside, where he was growing up. He said they would call the niggers. But see, it wasn't no niggers. Even that's something to point out. That's the same thing like Peyton Gendron up in Buffalo. Why do y'all have all this angst and animosity towards black people? You don't have contact with no Schwartzers to be upset with them about nothing, or even making jokes about them because you're not around them. Let's see. I think it's so important as well because we have so many people who talk about black people hating white people. Even Dr. Welsing used to mention that. I was hopeful I could find some sort of lecture or speaking engagement of Dr. Welsing in Milwaukee, but I failed. I did look. If anyone else goes and looks, let me know. If you find anything, let me know. But I also thought it was significant. We have so many people who talk about black people hating white people, Black Panther Party, Allah. And Mr. Arnold, he said, man, hey, we went to Lincoln Park. We went to the pool. They were not out that they didn't slash our tires. We didn't go out there and they egged our car on a 100-degree day and left a hot mess. They didn't, stalk my wife and rape her in the bathroom stall. They weren't calling my son Cracker, Whitey, get out of here, trying to drown him in the pool. None of that. None of, what are you doing here? This is our pool. Go back to White Folks Bay. None of that. And I would have been stunned if he had said, any of that. I think he did say earlier an incident happened, but we didn't hear that one. But I wish he had just said it then. But yeah, at least at the pool the last couple of days, we didn't hear nothing. No, vengeance is ours. We got Juneteenth in our blood, and you're going to get it, Whitey. None of that. And that's generally when I ask white people, I do not hear where they got tons of stories of black people out to get us, and black people hate my guts, and they don't like no white people. Come on. Come on. Let's see. Anything else? He knew about the juries. I'm not surprised. I'm going to have to investigate that myself. Common Ground in Milwaukee to see what work they're doing about getting black people on the juries. They certainly were not at work in the Sade Robinson case, where there were a total of 3 non-white jurors out of the potential of 15 for the final count. All 3 of those non-white jurors did end up being on the jury, but I mean, wow, that's the best that you can do. 15 potential jurors. 3 are non-white in a majority black city. One of them was Asian. So, I mean, you only got 2 black jurors in a majority black city out of 15. Come on. Common Ground ain't doing too well either, I would say. Let's see, but they're not ignorant. They've known about this problem for a long time. Let's see, we heard lots of ignorance and lots of metaphors like gee whiz, metaphor, even invoke some of Dr. King's metaphors about the dream and all of that. Be greatly suspicious when you hear white people and even non-white people, when they're talking about racism, you do not want metaphors, you want evidence and logic, not metaphors. And even that, I'd like to think, whoa, I'd like to think that I got $1 billion in my bank account, but man, the IRS people, they don't care what I'd like to think. They want to know what the evidence is. Do you have $1 billion? Because that's for sure we're going to have a talk then. I'd like to think. Come on. Let's see. He and his son are not ignorant about racism. They've been paid to take tours. And Nancy, that's the white woman who gave me his information. She was at the talk on Thomas Jacobson on his book on racism, Nazi Germany, the history of racism in Milwaukee specifically, and Jeff Dahmer. Nancy was at that talk, and she was on the tour going to Memphis and Atlanta. How many of you black people, how about this? How many of you black people live in Alabama and have not been to that museum? How many non-white people live in Tennessee and have not been to the Memphis Museum, the Lorraine Motel that they turned into a museum where Dr. King was assassinated? How many non-white people victims of racism live in Tennessee and you've never been to that spot? Live in Atlanta and you've never been to the King Center? They took the whole tour and took their offspring. Apparently, it was a big group of white people classified as Jews, Jewish. I thought white people were ignorant about racism. Wrong. Real talk, you can't be ignorant about racism if you got racism in your covenant. I mean, did you not pay attention when you bought the house? You didn't visit the house? You just showed up and they told you, we bought this house for you. Just, that's your bedroom. We already put the furniture in there. Just go in there and shut up. Close the door and, you'll like it. That's how you got that. Come on. Anything else I want to point out? Let's see. He ain't had no black people there in 25 years. He had no black people in his house in 25 years. I'm not saying, again, even if he'd had 50 black people at it, he could have said he had a whole football team at his house. Like, oh, okay, that's, right. 0 in 25 years? No business deal or the Bay Bridge folks, like I said. Y'all ain't watched no Packers games in all that time. Y'all ain't watched Giannis win the chip and have the colleagues come over and we, bring a few suds and we bring the cheese curds. We're going to get down and ain't safe for Leroy in Whitefish Bay or Sheboygan, Fond du Lac, Madison, Cedarburg, Cudahy. You're getting kind of close to where Max Anderson's folks are. You get down to Cudahy. He did live in Milwaukee, South Milwaukee, but close to Cudahy. Waukesha, I forgot, man. They pile them up, man. Woo! You are in trouble. Be Negro and you wander, and even if you're in Milwaukee, because black people don't live all over Milwaukee, it's, certain north part and certain regions, like, woo, you wander out in West Allis if you want to, see what happens. Jeff Dahmer's grandmother lived in West Allis, or lived, she's deceased now, God rest her white soul. Victim, did you have commentary you want to share? Anything stood out productive? Did we waste your Tuesday evening chatting it up with Whitefish Bay's Brent Arnold?
Yes, Gus. Again, thank you for taking my call. And yeah, this was a really good interview. I had been to the Tennessee Dr. King Memorial a while ago, and I've also been to the museum, his memorial in at Georgia as well. Mr. Arnold, I don't think he was. Well, when he said that he would, I guess, invest his time and energy in teaching black children how to swim, and even the donations to the Sade's Voice Foundation. I just don't think he's serious about anything. I just think they're just the group that he's a part of are just a bunch of socialites who like to come out for photo ops and social events and just seem like they are trying to do something constructive. When I asked Mr. Arnold, would he be willing to, I guess, give up or sell at a reduced rate his home to a black couple, black family, he sounded like he was hesitant, and if not, just would refute or reject the whole notion of something like that. I do remember that you had a guest on, Gus, about that. I think it was up in Seattle or something like that. They were trying to get black people to move back. But yeah, the part when you asked him about, did he, you ever hear any black people in your house? He said, in my house. He's like, I thought to myself, this is what I heard in my head. Got some niggers in my house. No. So that was kind of funny, but yeah, I just don't think Mr. Arnold's serious about anything like that.
That's about the size of it. Being truthful. Yeah. When Mr. Have you had any black people in you? That's about the size of it. Like, what? In my house? This nigger is crazy. You got to be out your Negro mind. That's white people at large. Like, that's not no special thing. Like I said, he wouldn't have got no, it really wouldn't have made a difference if he had said, I've had 50 black people and had pictures and everything on his Instagram. It really wouldn't have made a difference. But 0 in 25 years? Like, come on. Come on, man. Like, wedding, birthday party, nothing. You have people over every day, so that means your children don't have no Negro friends, nothing. Hey, come on. Come on. Man, I hope, because white people do waste a lot of money, I at minimum hope that they at least get, hey, man, we donated thousands to Sade's Voice Foundation. We not about no racism because we got money to burn. So, I mean, we waste money on chocolate, man. What is it, Ambrosia chocolate? We had, super charge card account there, So that's not a big deal. Now, the swimming, I thought that was massively important because that's talked about all the time. Like, they just had a heat wave right as I was leaving. It was closing on 90 degrees Fahrenheit the day that I left, and then they had triple-digit heat and even high 90s for, I think, the next 4 or 5 days until it cooled kind of off to whatever their normal summertime temperatures are, which are not triple digits and mid-90s. But that right there, if you can't swim, oh, man, what do? You just got to sit in the house all day long? That's not good, for exercise and being overweight and all that either. But, man, what do? I want to go swim. Let's do something. Let's go to the pool. Like, Jesus, Lord. I said that. I was in there. It wasn't all super hot when I said, hey, I want to go kayaking. It was just a regular, summertime day, 70 degrees, 75, whatever, nice. Go sit outside, get some rays. But I said, hey, let's go kayaking. I do want to add, I'm not no kayaking expert or nothing. This was not wild rapids and raging river and ooh, you could drown. Like, no, I mean, hey, you could drown in any water. But this was water that was relatively shallow. For most of it, you could actually just get out and stand up. Like, it was not something where you would be at immediate risk if you tipped over, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. Like, most of it was pretty calm. Like, it wasn't raging and really fast, hard current type of river trip at all. But even still, if you can't swim, you could, you could tip over. They said they make you wear a white life vest for a reason. You could tip. If you can't swim, maybe that sounds appealing. I'd rather sit on the coast. Like, let me sit over here on the side. Y'all get out there, take some pictures for me. Put it on TikTok, and I'm gonna do that one vicariously because I don't do. I understand people do drown, and lots of black people drown. Really, it just made me process. Like, dang, if I didn't know how to swim, I might make substantially different choices because I've been in the summertime where it was hot. I went swimming. Maybe you don't do that. It was hot. I at least went and sat in the water. Maybe you don't do that. Want to go kayaking. Maybe you don't do that. Anyway, learn how to swim. And yes, that is one. Now, Are you serious? This is one you wouldn't have to take a whole lot of money, and it wouldn't even be a whole lot of time because that's seasonal, right? Like that's one that you probably, maybe we just do that in the spring and summertime. Maybe we don't do swim lessons in autumn and wintertime. Okay, I get it. That would just be once in a while, summertime, we get our little group together, we meet up, we go to the YMCA or we go to Lincoln Park or whatever, we take a few photographs, great, we learn how to swim, maybe someone can make sure they save a life in the future, whoopee. He said, I don't think so. I don't think. In fact, I thought of the same thing. The organization we had guests on the program, PDX Housing Solidarity, we had them as guests on the program. It was Allison Brinkhorst and Sharona Silverstein, racist suspects, both of them. They invested in Dr. Eddie Moore Soothing Lotion, victim of racism. They invested in the White Privilege Conference. But that's who he was talking about, where they said, hey, we invested in, profited from, practice white supremacy racism. We will sell our property, and at a discount, we'll sell below market value to black people. We have a long history of excluding, we, white people, deliberately excluding black people, not just from buying houses, but from even living, existing in the state of Oregon. So to compensate, we will incorporate black people into our housing property, and we'll do it where we're not even making a profit. You know, we can absorb the loss. White people could do that. Same thing I told you in Whitefish Bay. They absorb the financial loss to put it in writing, no Negras in Whitefish Bay or Ethiopians. They could absorb the loss here. He even said that they should do it as a federal program. Now, it wasn't a federal program when those white people decided to get together in Whitefish Bay to put in a covenant to restrict Negras. That wasn't a federal program. I don't know why they would need a federal program to undo it, but there was a lot of federal help in putting together the system of white supremacy racism nationally. So certainly they could do that if white people wanted to do so. We'll have a federal program to incentivize white people to sell their property at a discount to black people, or lots of creative strategies to compensate for the system of racism. But white people don't want to do that. And I would say the evidence, I don't even know if Mr. Arnold wants to do that. He doesn't even want to bring one black person to his. We'll see. We'll see if Gus T gets there. I'll let you know if Gus T gets there. I call him up and say, hey, man, I'm in Sheboygan. I'm stuck. If I get to Whitefish Bay, I still got that place to stay? He's the in-laws say they got to visit for anyway, man, the dog has been sick, so we got him in the guest room. I know the dog is like family, really. We can't put the dog out for strange niggers. We'll get you a Motel 6. We'll get you a Motel 6. It'll be right down the road. We'll visit. We'll bring brownies. It'll be great. Same thing. We'll have to see if I get to hang out there. But yeah, I would say at least for right now, no, the evidence is mighty weak. I told you, Nancy did the same thing. She was ready to wag her finger in my face and saying that black people, y'all don't want to come out to Whitefish Bay. See, y'all need to be more willing to come out here and take a risk. Whoa, Nancy. You didn't offer to provide transportation, give a lift to not one black brother, one black sister in Milwaukee, not one? No. But you gonna shake your finger and say, come on, Nancy. You could, hey, Leroy is untrustworthy. He said the violent. I seen that black brother that shot the police officer in Milwaukee last week, and that was a black police officer that he shot and killed. Leroy can be unpredictable. You could have got him an Airbnb. That would have been easy. You could have went to the store. Hey, here is an Uber card. Knock yourself out. I put enough money. It's not enough money that you could go see your crack dealer and come see us, but it's enough you could get a ride, or you could have scheduled it. I'll send you an Uber right to come and pick you up. Go to a public location. Just go to the library or the mall, or not the crack stand, but whatever's close to where you are. I'll send the Uber right there to pick you up. Bam. It'll bring you right to the center, and then I'll send you an Uber right. If you got to go to work or home or wherever you're going after this, you got to go pick up your child up, I'll send you right there to get back where you need to be at. You should come and check it out. And we need more diversity. Really, we need more Negroes and Ethiopians in Whitefish Bay, and I'm going to make it happen. Nancy didn't say she did none of that. I don't even think she said that she told anybody. I said, did you even go and tell any black people in Milwaukee about this event and come on through? I didn't even say you got to give them a ride. Just let them know that it was happening. I think she said no to that too. Come on, man. Come on. Y'all can do better. Y'all can do way and less. We're dedicated to white supremacy racism, and we didn't intend for no niggers to be. We didn't intend for you to be here talking about Gus T, which is probably true.
And he argued with you about if there's any white people who are not racist. He had to know to argue with you about that.
Come on. It's got to be. Not all white people is rich. Again, I feel like I say this all the time. I don't remember saying today all white people is racist. I don't remember saying that. I swear for the Lord. I don't remember. The archive will be there. You can check the record, but I don't think I said that today. Matter of fact, I heard that a whole lot when I was in Milwaukee. Black people, white, they said it just as defiantly. Not all white people is racist, Gus T. Did I say all white people? Because I make a habit of not saying that because I expect people, they get real rowdy about that one. Like, ooh, who is this coon? You don't go around. White people and black people. He said they don't smack you upside the head. If you're a white man, white woman, white child, and you go amongst 500 black people, they don't get mad and call you names. If you are a black person and you come outside your mouth saying, hey, all white people are, I was, what, you know Becky ain't no racist. You know Brent ain't no, I've seen that like widespread. Why? Sometimes you don't even have to say all white people is, they just say you got that energy. You got that coonish spirit. It just is something about you seem like you want to say all white people is racist, and I think you need a good lashing just on that basis, even if you didn't say it. Whatever. Burden of proof would be on the people that you all insist ain't racist. When you all go to start your list of the white people that you know ain't racist, when it starts with Brent Arnold, and I said, the Brent Arnold that lives in the racially restricted region that don't allow no niggers at his house? That's the Brent Arnold that you talking about? Yes! You know Brent ain't no racist. Anyway, anything else you wanted to share? Victim times 3.
No, Gus. I think that's all from me. But again, it was a great broadcast. And thank you for taking my call again.
Much obliged. I think we had a lot of suggesting that the problem is that white people, them not having contact with black people is why we have this problem. Again, I submit that is a massive lie. On the plantation, white people had lots of contact with black people. Even beyond that. And I took the Dahmer tour. They said Dahmer was going and hanging out in the red light district. You want to do something strange for some change? It's been a whole lot of black people and white people hanging out. Jeffrey Dahmer is not the only one. Like dark meat. See, Gus ought not talk like that. I don't like metaphors like that. That's not funny. That's what's, hey, delectable Negro human consumption, homoeroticism in in Milwaukee slave culture. Facts. Anyway, and they were tennis ball bomb in Milwaukee today. I'm so glad I don't live in Milwaukee. Really, I'm so glad I don't live in Wisconsin. It wouldn't be no better if I was in West Allis, Pewaukee, Waukesha, Cedarburg, Sheboygan, Racine. It wouldn't be no better. Might even be worse because, racially restricted region. Anyway, I'm so glad I don't live in Wisconsin, but they were doing tennis ball bombs in Milwaukee land. And the person whose house they bombed, I think it was a non-white person. They got it on video. They showed them going by and they threw the tennis ball out. And it was quick too. Like they put it out, like they had to know what they were doing because it ignited in about 3 seconds from when they tossed it out of the vehicle. If somebody had been right there, like there was shrapnel damage all over the neighborhood from a tennis ball. I said, man, ain't that Columbine? Come on, man. Milwaukee is dangerous. I'd have lost my mind. I'd have been doing tennis ball bombs at random too. Tennis ball bombs. Psh, man. Anyway. We got part 2 with Mr. Jackson on deck. I have to see if that's tomorrow or a tad later in the week. I will post immediately. If it's tomorrow, it'll be same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That's it. The foundation address, one more time, Sade's Voice Foundation.com. Visit, check up, keep up with all the information, what have you. Certainly, they'll have updates once the sentencing, August 1. But check up with all the information on what the foundation is doing. I know they have backpack giveaways to keep Sade's legacy active in the Milwaukee area coming up at the beginning of the school year. That and plenty more. Sade's Voice Foundation. Maybe they'll even have, sometime, they make it public. When people invest in the foundation, maybe they'll have a big update. They'll be like, oh, whoa, we got like $10,000 from Brent Arnold. They're like, right on. Yeah, it would still be racist suspect, but right on. He made a nice chunky investment. And then, whoa, we got $50,000 from the Bay Bridge organization. She said, I never even heard of them. Wow, what do they do? They're working against racism in Whitefish Bay. Wow. Now, this burden of proof would still be there. But all right, right on, move in the right. Maybe I would think differently. Maybe I need to come on back out to Whitefish Bay, hang out. They'll do some sort of cookout or barbecue or what have you in my honor. They'll have a vegan cake for Gus T. Make sure everybody eats a lot of it first. Make sure I know it's not poison. You're not gonna swango me in Whitefish Bay. Anyway, we will be back maybe tomorrow, certainly by Thursday. Mary Kay Letourneau Book Club back on Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. If loving you is wrong, they put that word again, loving. Any hoodles, sobriety would be best, especially in Milwaukee. You can't be, man, buzzed and walking around the mean and dangerous streets of Cream City. Like, man, that is a recipe for disaster. Creator, we ask that you remind us to invest our time and energy replacing white supremacy with justice immediately. Remind us not to waste non-white people's time and energy, especially our own. No name-calling black people, no gossiping, no throwaway offspring. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cow signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed.
I'm a victim, brother.
No problem. You're a victim.
Yeah. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my condition. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.